What do you got?
I think I can prove to a judge that both of these men had the mens rea.
What the hell is a mens rea?
It's a legal term the lawyers use. It just means the intention to commit a crime.
Okay, come on, let's go.
Mens rea?
Put the cuffs on him.
How could we have gotten mens rea? We take blood? Can you do it without taking blood? We both use condoms. How is this possible? I want to see a doctor. Can I have an independent blood test?
Money!
I feel sick.
What are you doing?
Mens rea! Oh! Oh! My God! No!
Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are, whoever you're doing it with, whatever you're doing, however good it feels, whatever. I'm just glad you're doing it here on this little old channel we call Legal Vices. Kind of a clever name, isn't it? We've got to hit the ground running today. Today is International Wrongful Conviction Day. It's a global day of awareness for people that are wrongfully convicted. And one of the things we're going to be looking at today, well, the only thing we're going to be looking at today is the recent case of Zachariah Anderson and whether or not he was wrongfully convicted of the charges against him. We're going to be bringing in people right now real quick to set the groundwork, and we're going to dive headfirst into this. Before we get going, we have, where are we? The panicky super chats here. Law of Self-Defense kicking us off with a $10 super chat. Looking forward to this discussion. Thank you so much, Andrew. Good to see you here. Hopefully this will be educational for everybody. And what we're going to be doing is normally we take the super chats as quickly as they come in, as quickly as possible after they come in. But we've got a couple of breaks set up here. We got a lot to get through and a little bit of time to get it in. So we'll get them to your questions at breaks in the conversation and the topics. So you're not being ignored. We'll get to you as quickly as possible. Let's bring in the people, the brother of Zachariah Anderson. We have Solomon Anderson. Solomon, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And he'll be taking the lead on most of the discussion, bringing in the points that are being brought up. And we have Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law. If you don't know him, I don't know why you're here. But
hello.
Please make sure, if you're one of the 3 people that are subscribed to me or watching this that aren't subscribed to him, go over there and do that. Chandler Remington, Remy_legal is her channel. Welcome, Chandler.
Thank you.
And all the way from my time zone-ish is Aussie Overlaw'd.
G'day, peeps.
And Hayden and Chandler were part of the group that watched almost all, if not all, of the trial with me. So we had them back on here to offer comments as we go through. We're going to be doing about a 2-hour show. I do have kind of a hard out in about 2 hours and 3 minutes. So like I said, we got a lot to get through here. First, to set the groundwork, to set the sort of the framework for where we're going to be tonight. There's a little introduction to a video, and we're going to be posting the link to this video throughout the whole thing. It's an hour and 15-minute compilation going through the timeline and some of the problems, some of the prosecutorial misconduct, and some of the strongest evidence of a potential wrongful conviction. And certainly, without a doubt, in my mind, this was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt by any stretch of the imagination. So we're going to be posting links to the video throughout. Let me make sure the mods have the link to the video. And Digger, I'm going to be throwing that into your tweet right now, so we have that just to be sure. All right. So Solomon, are you ready to take kind of the lead on this here?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Awesome. Let me do this here too. Right. And let's start our show today, people, without further ado. Bring up the video. We've already got a boomer moment. How quick is that? I've only been doing this for 2 hours today. You'd think it'd be up already. All righty. This thing is just the worst. All right. Well, how clever is this? We're up to a great start.
All the time saved on yours, right? So otherwise I could share mine.
There we go. It was just StreamYard being StreamYard. Now we've got it under control. It was not recognizing the stream. Right, this is the introduction to the video that we're going to be watching today.
Those tiny little moments throughout somebody's life Nobody accounts for those. But what they do a really good job of is making up all of these things that they want you to believe when they can label you as a monster. I'm innocent, Judge. Not guilty. I'm innocent.
So that's the introduction we wanted to get through here. So I think that we're looking at some important information right in there. That's Zachariah Anderson during his closing statements. And what is he saying there? He is saying he's not guilty. He's saying he's innocent of the charges, which I think is a big statement to make. And Solomon, start us out with his background really quickly. How did we get where we are? At what point did you wake up just as a brother one morning and go, things are problematic?
I mean, as soon as I heard that he was arrested, honestly. So in this situation, he was arrested in May of 2020 for stalking, later charged with first-degree intentional homicide in December of 2020. So he was convicted of 2 counts of stalking, homicide, and the hiding of the corpse, because they never found the body of the missing man. So they just guessed. They had no murder weapon. They had no body, no direct evidence at the crime scene connecting my brother to it. All they had was a story to tell, and that was the importance of their presentation. They were trying to build a narrative and then layer in as much hearsay as possible to sort of set the stage, character assassinate him, and then move forward. In this trial, we saw a couple of things happen. It was a trial that was a family court battle, because they were about to go to court for child placement and support. It was a massive slander trial, bringing in highly prejudicial evidence in about marijuana and the processing of marijuana, and questions on whether or not it was accurate, as well as a trial for stalking and murder. So all of this stuff was sort of rolled into one big trial, and it didn't feel like it had a lot of direction as you were going through, and it really confused most of the audience, and frankly, I believe the jury as well.
And I think it's important to kind of go back and get a little bit of the history. This is not actually the trial of Zachariah Anderson. This is the retrial of Zachariah Anderson. He was put on trial the year before in 2022, but there was a mistrial on essentially day one. Immediately after the opening statements, a mistrial was declared. Why? Because this is a news clip from that day. It said, Gravely told the News Graphic Monday that the issue was with a witness, a woman who was supposed to meet with Gutierrez in May 2020, and we're going to get to her. Gravely indicated that in discussions with the DA's office, the witness indicated she arrived at what she thought was Gutierrez's apartment. She texted him telling him she was out there, but he never texted and came out. And again, we're going to get all into this. But essentially what it was Gravely did not turn over evidence of the fact that this woman allegedly went to the wrong apartment the night that she was supposed to have met Gutierrez, which is in absolute violation of everything to do with discovery. The prosecutor violated discovery rules by not turning over evidence to the defense, and Judge Schrader, declared a mistrial immediately after the opening statements. So strike one against the prosecution.
There's a few things that you have no idea who these people are. Michael Gravely is the Kenosha district attorney proper, the head honcho, the guy elected to the position.
That's Binger's boss, right?
That's
Binger's boss.
Rosario Gutierrez is the man who went missing on May 17th, 2020. He started dating my brother's baby's mama, so my brother's ex, in February is when they first started talking. So they met in person 6 times, give or take, between both of their children's custody schedule and everything else, all those complications that are involved in trying to date someone new while being a single parent. My brother is Zachariah, of course, and then their daughter testified against or for the state in this case, as well as several other women that Gutierrez was dating simultaneously. So they weren't in an exclusive relationship, and that's kind of relevant to exactly the intimacy of their relationship and what was presented to the public versus the reality of their relationship.
Gotcha.
And not only did the first trial end in a mistrial due to prosecutorial misconduct, during the retrial, during this trial we're talking about today, in the middle of the defense's opening statements, Gravely made a motion for a mistrial. Based on the fact the prosecutor, the prosecution are still probably pretty pissed off that they got their first case thrown out. This seemed really vindictive because the defense counsel was saying that they focused on one person, which is what that's probably the most common defense argument is they focused on one guy. They laser focused on their person. They didn't consider any other possibilities, and she was going to list possible people who could have done it that were never investigated. As soon as she mentioned the first person, he said, well, this has to be part of a Denny motion, because apparently in Wisconsin, you have to make a special motion if you're going to point the finger at a specific person. And they said, you didn't do this. We're not prepared for this. This is a mistrial. When that's not what she was doing. She was going to list a number of people who could have done it that weren't investigated. So
Gotcha.
that derailed the trial for an entire day till they basically told Gravely he was wrong and to sit down. It's not going to be a mistrial. Then there was another near mistrial later dealing with the same woman, which we're going to get into, that was the subject of the first mistrial. When she was getting there, it came out that not only had she allegedly gone to the wrong address, which was the basis for the first mistrial, that Gravely had gone to the scene with her. He had gone to the scene and said, I'm waiting for you where you said you were. Where are you? And allegedly, she said, oh, I guess I must have gone to the wrong place. And that was when the defense found out that Gravely had inserted himself into the situation and had become a material witness in this trial.
I want to point out that it wasn't only the DA Gravely, it was also the assistant district attorney who was the second on the bench with Gravely, Jessica Krzyzarek. So now both lawyers that were sitting for the state made themselves witnesses. They both met her at the crime scene and met, I believe the lead detective showed up. So you have both lawyers, both prosecutors showed up.
Yeah, and so the mistrial was avoided there, but then Gravely almost got himself completely thrown off the case because he was now on the defense witness list.
Right. You can't be a witness and the attorney representing an entity, in this case, the state.
Yeah,
except
and
he can,
eventually,
because he was allowed to be. They dismissed him for for the questioning of that one witness, and then they brought him back, and he was allowed to continue prosecuting.
Yeah,
Zachariah.
that was.
Sorry, you shouldn't be allowed to.
You shouldn't. But they do things
legally,
a little bit differently in Kenosha County, as I have learned.
Legally, to my understanding, you are allowed to, but it's considered completely unethical, and you're not supposed to do it. But he didn't care.
Yeah, and so that was the compromise they ultimately reached, was that he would not be allowed in the courtroom during her testimony. And then the final time a mistrial was narrowly avoided was when it came out very near the end of the trial that the prosecution had not turned over full copies of one of their reports, which had apparently some I can't remember exactly what the photographs were, but it started over a photograph, and defense saying, what photograph? We don't have this photograph. And then they went back and they noticed that they hadn't been even given the entire report. They'd been given part of a report, and they narrowly avoided a mistrial there. So you have, in one case, one mistrial and three very near mistrials, all brought about by prosecutorial problems.
Right. Numerous Brady violations, including a receipt that indicated an exculpatory piece of evidence that was essentially an alibi for him, that showed that he was at his accountant's office the day after the murder, when he was supposed to have been getting rid of this body, supposedly, which they never found.
Well,
they
that's
still
the
don't
thing.
have a body. They don't know if this guy's
Nope.
dead. He could be in Mexico or Argentina or Canada or something.
No,
He could be
I
in
still
his
think
mom's
he's.
basement for all we know.
I still think he's sitting on a beach somewhere earning 20%, as I said during the trial. There is no way in hell that this guy's actually, like, this should never happen.
I know what. I know
if I
what
can jump
continent he's
in.
not sitting on a beach on.
Yeah.
Aussie.
Yeah.
Well, Australia doesn't exist, but that was one of the things that we really, what we really noticed at the beginning of the trial. They brought up this photographic evidence, and they tried to insist that, you know, so essentially the crime scene was the apartment of the missing man, Rosario Gutierrez. They said that it was covered in blood. They said there was blood, you know, all over the walls, all over the carpet. It was soaked into everything. And when we saw photos, you could barely see anything. There was a little bit of spatter, maybe. It was not the way that they described it at all, but if you didn't have that visual, if you were just listening to it, you would imagine a very gory scene. There was not enough blood in that room, from what I saw, to indicate that somebody had actually died. I didn't see, you know, enough like evidence of exsanguination, even though I'm not a forensic analyst, essentially. There was not enough blood in that room. There, you know, it looked like some guy maybe got beat with a baseball bat or something, but he could have survived that. We really don't know.
Yeah, and again, where this is wrongful conviction day, I made sort of a list of the reasons why I think it's clear there should have been reasonable doubt found in this. And two of them we've just mentioned. There was no body found. None of the suspect's DNA was found at the crime scene. Not a single microscopic speck of Zachariah Anderson's DNA was found at the crime scene. There was no murder weapon. Gravely hinted that it may have been a baseball bat, saying the guy was a little league coach. There were some bats missing, and there was some wood fragments laying around the living room. Blunt force trauma. Every inch, as Chandler said, he said every inch of livable surface was covered in blood, except for where a living room carpet was removed. And to me, it looked like someone may have had like a little head injury. And there was a little pool of blood, and that was it. I mean, it was not this, you know, Carrie scene that he made it out to be. There was a speck. There was no blood. First of all, there was no blood of the victim found anywhere on anything belonging to the suspect. Not even the vehicle where Gravely was adamant the body had been stored in during this long process of hiding a corpse that supposedly took 2 or 3 days to do. Not a single speck of the victim's blood was found in the van. There was one tiny speck, brown speck, that they didn't test for blood. There was lots of brown specks from rust and dirt and whatnot. Then we'll get into that here in a little while. They did the phenolphthalein tests, presumptive for blood, on everything in the van. It all came back negative, but there was one little tiny speck that she described as a pinpoint prick of brown speck that they couldn't test for blood because it was too small. But in her professional opinion, it was blood, even though none of the other spots were.
Yeah, and then the second guy that went on to testify about that said that he himself disagreed with her testimony and couldn't conclusively say that it was blood. So I thought, you know, that's always great when you got two experts, one that is clearly being coached to say something specifically, and then someone who I think was probably wrestling with his own conscience based on his testimony, turning around and going, "Yeah, no, I'm not okay with that. In my professional opinion, we can't say that," which I thought was very interesting and telling.
I think that it's also really important to point out that that when Zach was charged in December, literally 5 weeks before that, Kenosha PD made a public statement that they had expected this case to be a cold case because they had such an overwhelming lack of evidence. And then a few weeks later, they have this one speck that comes back that they claim is Gutierrez's DNA, and then they say, let's charge this guy with homicide. So it's too suspiciously conveniently lined up with everything else that was going awry in this investigation.
Yeah, that leads right into the next point I was gonna make as far as the reasons why I think there was reasonable doubt and this was a faulty verdict and a wrongful conviction. Was again, no blood anywhere, and there's only this tiny speck. They didn't test it for blood because they needed to use the entire speck to test for DNA. And the best they could say scientifically was it was from a single source male donor. To which Gravely said, "So was it a match for Gutierrez?" And the witness said yes. That was it. There was no probabilities. There was no numbers given. It was just this leading question.
They said they could not rule it out that it belonged to him, but they also couldn't rule it out that it belonged to anybody else. The problem they had was that his father was missing, and they could not compare his DNA to his father. So they did not have any familial DNA to compare his potential DNA to. Therefore, they could not find a match. It was completely inconclusive. It was very sketchy and very dodgy. The problem is that Michael Gravely sold it as though it was this, major piece of evidence. He claimed that Zachariah Anderson cleaned up the car and tried to get rid of the evidence because his car was filthy. He bought some bleach wipes and therefore he was trying to hide evidence. It was during COVID. Everybody was buying bleach wipes. Everything was spun in a way to make him look guilty, where this was just a guy who was dealing with, a custody case, and they spun all of his behavior to make him look like a murderer.
So I want to point out that they weren't bleach wipes; they were just Lysol wipes. So they tried to spin it like he was buying bottles of bleach and all this talk of bleach in news media, but it wasn't true. So that's
another important part. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it's an important distinction to make that also the DNA testimony. Nicholas Starro, Trial Watch. Nick, I don't know if you've seen him around.
I've seen that guy.
Yeah. Swedish guy. He's amazing. But he covered this with Steve Gosney, and then Gosney went on with a DNA expert, and they reviewed this testimony, and they said absolutely conclusively that the way the DNA evidence was presented was so improper that it should be an appealable issue, because it was done in such a poor way.
Right.
And
sometimes experts aren't great, and a lot of times, as I've talked about, experts, they're not supposed to be, but they end up being mercenaries. And the state has a lot of resources in high-profile cases to hire really good mercenaries, and the defendants don't always have that same opportunity. It's weird how that works.
She was just an employee from the state crime lab. It wasn't even like they hired someone from, from whatever field. She was just one of the crime lab experts.
Right, but the interesting thing about crime lab, I'm not trying to argue. I have no idea about her specifically, but they do end up testifying quite often. They get pretty good at it. That's kind of the fun thing about them, and they're a free resource from the state since the state's already paying them. Having to fight them tends to have to get a more experienced expert that costs a lot.
Well, the main criminologist they had testifying hadn't even taken the class about blood spatter analysis. He didn't know what he was doing, and yet he was the one who was relied upon to testify about the blood spatter. They didn't have anybody more senior, more expert to testify to that. The whole time we were going, what's this guy doing on the stand? He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not even trained in this field.
We will get to talk about the blood testimony a little bit further down the line here. Solomon, how big is Zach? How tall? How much does he weigh?
So Zach's 6'1", and at the time he weighed somewhere between 215 and 220, give or take. So he was roughly my size, reasonably fit, but he had a back injury that is one of the reasons why he stopped working for AT&T. So he had fallen and had a back injury, so he struggled to lift a lot of weight. And if he did, he would be, short of breath and not able to move. He'd be very stiff, and it was an ongoing problem for years. He was getting trigger point injections and all kinds of other treatments at the Mayo Clinic, actually, up in the Twin Cities and a bunch of other places that he was going for treatment for this.
And Gravely he pointed out he was the only person that did this. He went in, he murdered this person. He somehow got the body out, stuffed it in the van all by himself with no help from anyone, went somewhere that we don't know where and disposed of the corpse. Problem being, the victim, alleged victim anyway, was 6 foot, 270 pounds. So he's being lugged around by a 2+ guy with a bad back, thrown in the back of a van, hidden, done all this all by himself. So that's a problem. And the only evidence, the only testimony they have tying him to this is the worst prison snitch testimony you're ever going to see, Nick.
Oh, great. Prison snitch. It's always reliable. It's always good.
Even other prison snitches are going, bitch, please, when they listen to this.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. And the prison snitch's name is Munch. That's his prison name.
I forgot that.
He looks like him. Yeah. No cameras.
I don't want to know what his role is.
Better than lunchbox.
32 cameras between Zach's home and the murder scene. Not a single camera caught the van coming or going.
So that's just freeway cameras. That doesn't include bus stops, gas station cameras, and doorbell cameras or anything else. So that's just DOT traffic cams on the freeway.
And yet they insisted that he used this particular vehicle to transport his body. No other vehicle.
The only camera that caught him was a Walmart camera when he was buying supplies the next morning, which we're going to talk about to a certain extent here. His daughter was clearly coached. Poor girl. I feel terrible for her. We'll talk about her testimony later. And his rights were denied. One of the states.
How old's the daughter again? Sorry, at the time of testimony,
she was 14.
Time of testimony, she was 14.
Yeah.
Oh, and so it happened when she was 12.
Right.
Yeah.
So to the audience, the reason I ask that is just simply judges allowing minors to testify is always it's a judgment call, and that judgment call is made based on the perceived ability of the minor in that instance to offer valuable testimony. The idea that someone under the age of 18 can offer reliable, useful, probative testimony, is based specifically on the child, their ability to communicate, how much of this they may have witnessed, and sort of other factors that go in that the judge has to weigh. So having a 14-year-old testify in a very heavy thing involving a lot of trauma, that's a toss-up judgment call. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. It's just always questionable about the value of it, and that should be taken into consideration with any minor's testimony.
I think we actually have on our website an argument about that, very specifically about the susceptibility of a minor witness to suggestion. So, and how that works with memory, and very specifically scientific articles that cite how suggestion can affect the accuracy of a minor child, and whether or not their testimony could be reliable, because she had just turned 12 when this incident occurred. She was still very young. So it was 33 months later. It was right before her 15th birthday when she testified in the court. And, even in the closing arguments, Gravely makes a statement about how even if what she said in court doesn't match her original statements, she still believed every word she said, which is it's just a messed up way of presenting it.
Well, that was weird. Gravely, none of us asked.
Yeah. No, right. Exactly. And I feel so sorry for the daughter. I mean, she was clearly coached, and you're going to see how clearly she was coached here. And the rights of it was shocking. One of the state's witnesses, they were going to recall for the defense to make a statement about a particular thing we'll get into. But the state's witness, he had mysteriously, just coincidentally, happened to be out of state for his daughter's volleyball game on the day he was supposed to testify, so he couldn't make it into court. There were several instances of things like that happening. And interestingly, the victim worked in the court system. He was apparently a process server, maybe, or doing something in the court system. So that's I keep saying victim, I mean missing guy.
Right.
And again, part of the daughter's testimony, which I thought was interesting, which clearly also, in addition to what we're going to show video wise, she testified in the house that there was specifically 72 marijuana plants growing in the house. There was a drying room where they would be laid out and dried. She testified to there being a cutting room. And then the prosecution showed her a bag of weed and said, "And can you identify this?" And she said, what's that?
What is that?
Can you tell me what that is? So she testified to 72 marijuana plants, drying rooms, cutting rooms, but couldn't identify a bag of weed. Clearly coached, but not well enough.
Right.
So, I mean, those are just a few of the personal reasons I have why there was more than enough reasonable doubt in this case, from the juror's perspective, as well as prosecutorial misconduct. Now I want to kind of get into the details of it, the background, the custody dispute. Go ahead, Solomon.
I mean, there was there's actually they testified that around March 5th, there was a conversation thread between Rosario and Sadie, very specifically outlining, trying to lay a foundation, a breadcrumb trail for how to get custody of the children and maximize her placement in child support. And in that discussion, he very specifically says, "There's always Plan B." And she responds something along the lines of, "Oh, I've thought about Plan B."
And is this the clip for that? The first clip you wanted to show?
This is a reference to something that occurred a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, but
all right.
This happened a little bit later on, and this was at the end of April, where they're talking about giving Gutierrez Zach's address, and this is an important thing because of the nature of this, because Zach was charged with stalking Gutierrez. In this, it's evident that he isn't afraid of Zach at all. This should have been a directed judgment. They should never have gone to the jury, but Schrader wanted it to go to the jury because he didn't want to make a decision.
But yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, exactly. So in this, he very specifically lines this up to say, well, I'm going to go pay him a visit. Go ahead, Joe.
And this was on the heels of, as you're saying, that he was telling her, Gutierrez was telling the ex-girlfriend, you need to create a paper trail. You need to create these and document these situations so that you can get custody and he won't get it. And if that, and there's also Plan B, and that's what sort of instigated the Plan B. Either create this paper trail or Plan B can be put into action as well. And this is the first little bit. Because again, that's one of the things you have to prove for stalking is that the person was in fear. And this is him saying that I'm not really worried about
it. Correct. And he says he can have all my info. I want him to know exactly who beat his ass up. Correct? Correct.
I didn't hear the answer.
Correct. I care about you and don't want to cause more problems, but I think I'm going to pay him a visit, correct?
Yes.
This is on April 26th at 9:02 p.m. Right?
Yes, that's what it says.
All right. That's him saying, I'm not really worried about the guy. Give him my address. I'm going to beat his ass, and I want him to know who beat his ass in Plan B.
Also, she gives him the address. She like fans the fuel here, gives him the address. And then we have this question about this DNA speck in the back of the van. Where did it come from? Well, he just said that he was going to go pay him a visit. We don't know that he didn't go through the van. My brother had 2 vehicles. So the van would have been parked at his home and he would have taken his Audi and driven elsewhere. He wasn't home that night.
And where the next phase is basically, I think, her saying, he's been fucking with me and let's fuck with him back. Could you set that scene for us?
So in this, Sadie had started to build this narrative and started to talk about this narrative of, she tried to start accusing him of stalking and all of these things. She had access to his phone and his Amazon account, where she says that she saw that he ordered these trackers and things like that these GPS trackers that were found. One of them still in the box, just totally unmolested, just a whole brand new tracker. Now, in this, she starts threatening him and making comments to him, and she says to Zach, effectively, "You fuck with me, I'll fuck with you." And this is in like the week and a half before the incident where Rosario went missing.
Well, pop back.
Sent a text where on May 10th, 2020, you sent Mr. Anderson a text that says, "You are stupid for trying to fuck with me, so you get fucked with back."
Text messages.
So this is kind of the exchange, the nature of their relationship, and I only want to point this out because there's motive in this for what is transpiring between them and why my brother was implicated. This whole situation was brought on by her feeling like she needed to mess with him, needing to win that custody battle. This is all this is. She had, you know, hatched this plan to try and build this crying wolf plan, or this crying wolf presentation of weaponizing police to get them on board, with then using them to win with a silver bullet argument in a custody battle. Does that all make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and all of there's much more in this video. The link, the mods are putting it constantly in the chat. You can go to the link and watch the entire video. It's about an hour and 15 minutes long, laying out this timeline in exacting detail, the nature of their relationship. Him, him being Gutierrez suggesting plan B, her giving him his address, and setting up this relationship between them, which, when she's called out about it on cross-examination, she starts getting testy with the defense lawyer, with the judge, and eventually has to get reprimanded for it.
Gotcha.
This is a little bit. Do you want to set this clip up with her being just told to answer the question, Solomon?
Yeah, so it's basically what Jeff just talked about is this situation where she starts to get annoyed and wanting to explain or re-explain the situation. So she becomes too verbose. She stops answering the question. She starts evading the answer, and the judge multiple times during this examination, this cross examination, who's on the cross, tells her to answer the question, and he has this moment with her where you can see how irritated she is, and the attitude she gives everyone in the courtroom.
Ma'am, please just answer the question that she's asked. I did. Thank you. You hear what I said?
Yes. Yeah, and that wasn't the only time.
So this exchange happens between her and Bruce, and immediately following this, Schrader gives the definition of evasive answers to the jury. He actually turns and addresses the jury and explains to them what being evasive is when answering a question. So,
yes,
it's that bad. Like, stop the trial because she was that bad.
Right. That's wild. He's but the thing about Schrader is he'll do stuff like that, but at the same time, he refuses to call actual balls and strikes during trials. Like, well, it'll just go to jury. It'll just go to jury. It's like, you can't just let these things go to jury. Juries often don't even understand what they're looking at. They're just normal people. And I hate that aspect of him.
And God, Nick, it's so much worse than the Rittenhouse trial, because apparently he was involved in some kind of accident and suffered a head wound between Rittenhouse and this trial. And someone would make an objection, and he would literally do back when I was in court with Cicero in ancient Rome, and talk for 20 minutes about something, and then at the end go, well, it's not an issue yet. Yeah, well, if it becomes an issue, we'll get it. I mean, he was. Yeah,
it's day 3 or 4. He filibusters the courtroom after the jury is dismissed, and he literally talks for an hour and 20 minutes, to the point where the defense attorney, Nicole Muller, ends up asking the judge to either wrap up so she can go to the bathroom, or for a bathroom break. It was that bad. It was literally 80 minutes of sitting in the courtroom listening to him ramble. I was beside myself.
Oh, yeah, through the whole trial, just talking about baseball games he'd gone to. He was way worse than he was during the Rittenhouse trial, as far as saying anything coherent and coming to a point. It was kind of frustrating was the word I was going to use, but that kind of doesn't even begin to describe it. Even on the replay, we would watch it at 1.5 or 1.75 speed, and it would be just about normal speed. Because he was talking really slow, and I mean, you're going to hear, I think it's in one of the clips we're going to play later, where you can actually hear him use the phrase, well, it's, I think it was a here. Yeah, it's hearsay-ish.
Hearsay.
That's his word.
Yeah.
It's hearsay-ish. Congratulations, Judge.
I mean,
Thank
and
you.
to put the hearsay into perspective for you, Nick, there's literally a moment where he addresses the jury and says, I have never allowed this much hearsay into a trial, but I think that the Supreme Court is changing their opinion on hearsay, so I'm going to allow it. In 40 years on the bench.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense in a criminal trial for murder where someone will go to prison forever. Seems like a good place to start trying that out.
Right.
Can't do it on like some traffic tickets or like it's disorderly conduct. Like, can we go there, Judge, where it's a $500 fine instead of loss of liberty forever?
Yeah, it's only a man's life.
Right. And
well, I mean, from memory, they had to drag him out of retirement because of the close connection to the court on this case. So he may have seen it as his last chance to set a precedent that everyone will remember him for, just for the very wrong reasons.
So no, judges don't do that, Aussie. What are you talking about? Judges don't care about their legacies like that.
It wasn't that he was pulled out of retirement. It was his very last criminal case. He was doing only civil cases after this. And because it was delayed so long, he was completely off of the criminal case dockets. So he was only a civil case judge at that point when it was tried. And in the interim between the first mistrial and the second trial, which is arguably also a mistrial, he had fallen and injured himself and has sustained that head injury. And you can see the scar on the side of his head and everything when you watch the actual trial footage. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, and he was off his game a lot because his wife was having medical issues during the trial. He had to take her to doctor appointments several times during the trial. It was wild from the courtroom side of things.
Yeah, Nick, I watched him fall asleep.
Oh yeah,
he watched him fall asleep.
But there weren't other available judges because all of the other judges in Kenosha County had a conflict because they all personally knew the victim because he had worked in the court system. So they actually did a lot of judge shopping. He was like the 7th judge to get this case, which is a huge red flag in my opinion. I don't know,
Yeah.
They tried to move it to neighboring counties of Walworth and Racine County, and no judges in either of those counties could take it either.
Bring in Borowski. Pinch hit Borowski, the greatest judge of all time.
There was a lot of discussion about that as the trial went on. I was like, okay, this would have been over in 15 minutes.
It would have been just dismissed.
We've done very well. Yeah. But bringing us back to this situation with this possible setup of Zach, we've got the friend of Sadie, the ex-girlfriend, talking to the friend talking to the friend's mother about maybe doing something to set him up or something to injure the defendant Zach. Want to set that up, Solomon?
Yeah. So in the opening statements, like Jeff had mentioned, we have the objection raised by the prosecution about a conversation that Sadie had with her best friend Rebecca, and the contents of that Jeff will put as a screenshot on the screen. It says, all I was told is it will begin again, and you will not know when, where, or how. Call me in 1 week. So that statement was read out during the opening statements, and that is tremendously suspicious. The police never looked into her or the context of this, and they were allowed to watch the trial and then come in and make up a BS excuse filled with lies because of Marcy's law. Sadie's allowed in the courtroom the entire time, so she's there and able to see everything transpire and then go meet up with her best friend and then come up with a plan on how to excuse it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just it right here. And she was saying, "Oh, well, should we play? Should we play the actual clip of her saying what she said? I think we should."
Sure.
Yeah, when she was asked, well, what when you said, well, all you said it would begin again, and you'll not know when, where, or how. Call me in 1 week. What did you mean? Her answer was less than stellar.
Sadie, then, when you told her you will not know when, where, or how?
I don't know. I was being cryptic in the fact that I thought.
Yeah, I was being cryptic. That was her answer. I was just being cryptic.
So she has no idea what she implied by that, which is just BS. There's no way that that's truthful. So you have someone that goes, I don't know, I was being cryptic. Like, she clearly remembers the statement. She clearly remembers the context of it. She explains it, prior to that being read out, or prior to that moment, and then yet somehow doesn't remember exactly what she meant by her cryptic message. It doesn't make sense.
Right, and this was the subject of one of the Denny motions that Schrader, I believe, denied in the beginning of the trial. Am I correct about that?
It was what he wanted to consider for a Denny motion and stopped the trial for. That was the objection that the prosecutor tried to argue was Denny material, but it doesn't fulfill all three aspects of the Denny law because it doesn't imply motive, opportunity, and means. All it does is create suspicion. So it didn't qualify as a Denny motion whatsoever, and was never intended to be a Denny motion. And I mean,
that's weird. So I get the requirement of a Denny motion if you're going to engage in making that detailed of an allegation, but I don't see why you would be precluded from offering evidence that some other actor would be a possible better suspect, or that should have been investigated, or would be evidence of an alibi for the defendant. That's so strange. Wisconsin has weird laws.
Yeah. The defense lawyer specifically said, when she was asked to give her rebuttal to the objection, was, I'm not saying it was her. I'm going to give you a long list of people it could have been. And she wasn't allowed to.
Right. That's crazy.
I mean, there was a unanimous SCOTUS decision in 2006 that actually cited the Denny law as a law that would be affected, ruling that laws like Denny that preclude the defense from making a complete argument in their defense violate the 6th and 14th Amendment. So we have yet another constitutional rights violation.
And that's kind of the background that leads up to all of this. Are you any questions or comments from anybody before we move on to the next section? Anything we're curious about? Yeah.
May I? I wanted to point out that I know that it seems really strange that they wouldn't investigate other potential bad actors, but they zeroed in on Zach from the beginning because Sadie went to the police 2 days after Rosalia Gutierrez went missing. She went to to his apartment. They called people in because they were very concerned that they hadn't heard from their friend in 2 days, and she said, I know Zachariah Anderson had something to do with this. She made that statement. The police zeroed in on him. They went to his house. And there was a lot of stuff that happened there that was very suspicious and very strange, but that does not add up to a guy who just committed a murder. Now, I'm sure you're going to get to that, Jeff, but I wanted to just mention that because I think it's really important to just focus on the police honed in on him from the beginning, and they never really looked at anybody else at all, even though there were lots of suspicious characters who were doing really weird stuff. If you watch the trial, you will see everybody on the stand is acting like a little odd. They seem sketchy. It's hard to place.
Almost. Yeah, there's a few that carried. You're going to see
not everybody, but a lot of people.
She was pretty genuine with her testimony.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about two of those shady characters here in just a minute. I think this is a good part to catch up on some of the midstream super chats. There's a lot of the monthly membership chats. We'll get to those at the end. I apologize for that. I want to kind of keep us rolling here. We'll get to law of self-defense. Andrew, who had to bow out a little while ago, said, did Zach make his own closing statement? Seems odd. It was a great statement if you watch the entire thing. He just basically said, look, I had nothing to do with this. And like we played at the beginning, I'm not guilty. I'm innocent. And
so that statement was actually at sentencing, not at closing.
Right.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So he didn't do his own closing statement. He did his character statement for himself at sentencing. And that's where that clip came from.
Yeah. Disregard what I just said. You're absolutely correct. Woke Wesley says Solomon is an amazing champion for his brother. Have any of the other panel members or lawyers in the chat dealt with the Denny motion before? Do you think this should continue because case law could be challenged constitutionally? I never have, and yeah.
No, I've never had to deal with the Denny motion. But to me, it sounds like an immediate infringement on your ability to raise a proper defense. Like I don't see why defendants would be limited in raising any evidence that they find probative. And if that evidence points to someone else and you say, look, there are other suspects here, we're going to show you evidence of where some of these other people could have been involved. As long as that evidence is probative and its probative value is not outweighed by its prejudicial impact, that should be allowed. I can't see anything else. Now, obviously, you can't just theory craft. You can't just get up at opening argument and be like, well, someone came in and shot him, and we think it's pull out a phone book and just pick a name. You're like, you can't do that. That's ridiculous. But if you have logical steps that you can show evidence for as to why someone else is a more reasonable candidate for the or more reasonable suspect, that's just raising reasonable doubt. I mean, that's the quintessential definition of it. It's often done with when there are things like conflicts with alibis. It's like, look, you have an alibi here. People will believe it or not. It's like, but this person we know was at this scene or was in this area. They don't have an alternative alibi. We haven't heard anything from them. And those types of questions should be asked, in my opinion. I don't think Denny motions are protecting our constitutional rights at all. I think they're infringing on them.
I hate them. What about the foreigner's perspective, Aussie? What do you foreigners think about these Denny motions?
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of hard to engage in one of these motions when it's not something that we specifically have here. I mean, as you said, generally, if you have the ability to point the finger at somebody and you have a reasonable suspicion, or you can say there is a reasonable, logical likelihood that this person was involved, you can't really be prevented from pointing the finger at them, basically. It's one of the standard defense tactics. You sort of expect it. So, no, I completely agree. I think that... I think someone in chat said it. The Denny case really should wind up at the Supreme Court, because I'd like to see an actual proper ruling on it. Because could you imagine how that would apply nationwide across the various jurisdictions? That'd be insane.
And Adara the Wholesome says, Gravely is more of an embarrassment than law and crime, and that dingus suing Nick combined. That's an embarrassment. Too bad Schrader is so old a fart could turn him to dust. Thank you so much for that, Adara. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Gravely's just evil. I mean, he's evil. I think he's a truly evil human being, and that's saying a lot for a prosecutor. Law of self-defense again, Andrew. I know you've gone, but hopefully you'll be watching this later. Prosecutors would never lie in pursuit of an unjust conviction. Just ask every wrongfully convicted defendant ever. See, that's the thing. Like, defense lawyers don't get fired from the public defender's office if their clients are guilty. Prosecutors, you got to get the numbers, or you're looking for a new job. Which
I literally just spent 3 hours going over various cases where there were prosecutorial misconduct, and seeing some of the people that have been released after 20, 30, 50 years for wrongful convictions. The amount of prosecutorial misconduct. Oh, and the bar, I can't remember which specific, it was an NCNDAA, whichever association it was, having them put a motion forward to say that, oh, we shouldn't be allowed to use the phrase prosecutorial misconduct anymore. That's some BS.
What?
Yeah, they put together a whole thing and submitted it saying that, because it's not actual misconduct, that gives it a bad phrasing. And I'm just like, yeah, no, it's prosecutorial misconduct. If someone deliberately has a folder in a prosecutor's file that says do not hand over to the defense with a sticky note on it, I'm sorry, that's misconduct. I don't care.
Maybe.
Sounds a little... yeah. If that's how you want to look at it.
Well, but technically, though, you could have a list of items that's, work product that would actually, the defense might not be entitled to, but not of actually, I get what you're saying. Like,
I think a confession note from a third party might class as something that should be handed to the defense.
That's work product if the third party is employed by the prosecutor's office. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. That was a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, in this case, we have almost 3 potential Brady violations that caused, potential mistrial. I mean, am I incorrect about that, or is that what was happening? Because that was what I saw.
I mean, that's what it appears to be. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean that.
The prosecutor's office failed to hand over exculpatory evidence on, I believe, 3 separate occasions.
Sounds like Brady violations to me. I mean, I think that's the actual definition of them. So
sounds like Gravely and Binger's office to me.
Don't worry, we'll just let the jury decide on that one.
Nathan C., thank you for your $5 retracted message.
We must have answered his question.
Also, I think I saw Natalie Wisco in the chat. Hi, Natalie.
Natalie
was here earlier too.
Yeah, he left us a super chat. We'll get here to in a minute. Jen RN, thank you so much. Kenosha PD released a statement in October 2020 that this was going to be a cold case because they didn't have enough evidence to say he was murdered. He was still officially listed as a missing person until after sentencing, at which point I think it was after sentencing when the judge says, well, I guess now you're going to have to file the paperwork to have him declared dead.
Yeah, he was declared dead by jury verdict, not by any forensic analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, that was we've got a conviction, so I guess he has to be dead. Otherwise, so you better file the paperwork.
See, the hilarious thing is that, like, taking out of it, because, I mean, this is all it's a very serious and somber topic, so I feel the need to inject a little bit of levity here. If the moron actually comes back from the beach, I just covered a case where a woman has been legally declared dead and she's fighting to be declared alive.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. In my humble opinion, says Tara Rayner, if Campbell is a better suspect if he's not dead. We're going to be talking about Campbell right after this. There's two main people that I consider to be main suspects that are far more logical than Zachariah Anderson. Worst part of the trial is what was forced on Zach's daughter. She was well coached and clearly broken. Yeah. And don't forget, says Adara the Wholesome, don't forget the mouthing with the we'll get to the mouthing part with the daughter, and they saw Gravely doing, both caught on tape, one shown to Schrader and still doing nothing. Yeah, we'll get to the coaching. We've definitely got the coaching videos lined up here. USS J4 Brawley, thank you so much. Reminds me of that Murdoch case where there wasn't much evidence of him actually being there.
Yeah, there's some similarities, honestly.
Yeah, well, this makes Murdoch look like an absolute open and shut case. That's how little evidence there is in this.
They declared him legally dead because he stopped talking to his family, but, there were reasons for him to go missing. He owed child support, he owed rent, he owed money to people that he was working with.
Yeah, he was about to be evicted.
Look, there are very distinct similarities between the two cases. Replace the financial crimes with weed, and the prosecution were trying very hard to nail him on that. It's very similar in terms of how they acted.
Tara Rayner, Wisconsin experts gauge competency from Rittenhouse trial. Did you add color with interpolation? No. Did you add pixels? Yes. James Anderson, expert. And again, Tara, Olivia believed what I told her to say, said Gravely. Yeah, pretty much. Can't argue with that. I mean, I hate Gravely. I really do. Lefty lulls. It's absolutely fantastic to see Nick and Saul finally on the same stream. Well, I'm glad we can make it happen.
Yeah,
there's a lot more to talk about.
Solomon and I have been talking back and forth about doing a show a little bit. He talks more because I'm bad at responding, but that's my fault. But the main reason I haven't done an interview is because I don't know much about the case, and that's why I'm here to learn about it. Because when I interview him and talk about it, I don't want to waste his time like recapping me on all the details. So I'm really glad that this is opportunities come up because I get to learn about the issues, and then we can talk about more important things when we actually talk to each other. So that's kind of the plan.
And so now we're going to get into the meat and bones of this with the actual testimony from good people, bad people, and otherwise. Tara Rayner again. Sadie says she wasn't able to get into his phone. Yeah, that's definitely a true statement. And Viva Fry dropping the random $36 super chat. That's an oddly specific number. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry I could not make it, but I shared it around. Solomon, keep fighting the good fight. The more people know about this patent injustice of a conviction, the more they will know it's a patent injustice. And I mean, this is the important thing to note is, the internet is going to internet. Yeah, he did this, he didn't do this. Every single lawyer that I have seen, whether it's part of this law tube thing, or not, every single lawyer I've seen address this said this was a complete travesty and injustice. I haven't seen one lawyer go, yeah, he got what he deserved, other than Gravely's office.
A lot of 13th jurors, though. But
I was going to say, there's plenty of fake lawyers that are saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Rachel Hope Bryston Engelhart. There's a posh sounding name, isn't it? Just reminding everyone to go check out the petition, sign and share. Give us a quick on the website there, Solomon.
So we have a running petition as well with I don't know, 1,500 views, something, or signatures on it, just to raise awareness for the misconduct in the case, and then to be able to present that to, the Office of Lawyer and Regulation, to the governor himself, to elected positions, to show the amount of support for the misconduct in this trial. We have our website, which you can't see my name right now, but it's freezachariahanderson.org. Right down there. On freezachariahanderson.org, we have a bunch of trial overview. We have actual case documents, including some of the information about the Denny motion filed, some of the transcripts of the pretrial motions, and things like that we received during the Freedom of Information Act requests. So we went to the courthouse. We actually took down some of the documents that they had in the court computer system. We brought those home. Those were public information, and we shared some of those documents, and we submitted a Freedom of Information Act, and we have some of those pieces of information available as well. So as long as it was public information, we're trying to be as transparent as possible for people with acumen and intelligence to go through and look at and really get a grasp on how this trial was tried and where it went wrong.
And it is an invaluable resource. It's a giant FAQ is what it is.
We're also raising money for Zach's legal defense and appeal at GiveSendGo/ZA Anderson. You can find that there, and we've got a long way to go. We just got the quote for the court transcripts for the trial alone, and those are just about $10,000. And that's not the cost of the lawyer. The lawyer's going to be expensive. It depends on what lawyer you talk to with how expensive it is, but every round, whether it's the post-sentencing motions and all the remedies that you have to file, or if it's to the Court of Appeals or to the Supreme Court, each round has further costs. So Nick, you're familiar with all that. I'm just kind of spewing out for the public.
And Talk with Sally says, thanks for the show. Hi and bye. Thanks for popping in, Sally. Nicholas Daros trial watch. If they did a Denny motion against Zach, he wouldn't fit the criteria. Probably not.
No, they couldn't prove it. They couldn't prove proximity.
During 1804, the Romans just called misconduct by prosecutors judicial murder. Ask Schrader. He was there. And Vilhammer Media, the person who put together this video, again, the links is constantly coming up in chat. Go check out the entire video. Says hashtag free Zachariah Anderson and excited utterance. For my little girl and me, loves. Big hugs to Solomon, Jack, Zen. Let's try this again. Big hugs to Solomon, Jen, Zach, and family. Got through it. We are with you guys. XO. And we also did have 5 gifted memberships from Manders 13, as well as 5 gifted memberships from Chuck Wilson. So if you were one of these lucky 10 people, give him a big super special thanks. All right, now I want to shift into the actual what happened in court. Who were the possible suspects? What went wrong? What went right? Now we mentioned this is they said it was big. Oh, he went to Walmart the next morning. Let me get rid of this here. He went to Walmart the next morning, and he parked at the far end of the parking lot. And he went and bought essentially a murder cleanup kit. That was Gravely's point of view.
And that's to sell those.
Yeah. Well,
it's in aisle 23.
And it's probably not something you actually want to buy if you plan on cleaning up a murder scene. Now, mind you, Zach was a contractor who demolished houses. That was part of his deal, and that's what he was on his way to do the morning that he went to Walmart, which was the day after the murder was supposed to have occurred. And so what Gravely wants us to believe is he's got a minivan with windows, a 270-pound bloody corpse in the back. He parks in a parking lot in the daytime, and he'd search for what times does Walmart open. What time do Lowe's open? What time does the nearest Walmart open? So therefore, he was clearly worried about getting there, but he didn't show up until about 8:15 in the morning. And, Walmart's open at 5, 6, whatever. He could have gone in the dark, could have gone as soon as they opened. What does he buy in Walmart? Q-tips, Old Spice, a razor, 2 boxes of 13-gallon garbage bag, which is your kitchen garbage. It's 24 inches, like 61 centimeters. You don't put even Taylor Shabusiness didn't put body parts in a small garbage bag. So we have the Q-tips, Old Spice, razor, 2 boxes of these small garbage bags, 2 packages of latex gloves, 3 containers of sardines, and 2 boxes of antiseptic wipes.
That's
it.
Nothing.
That's a COVID. Yeah, that's a
and
COVID.
This is in the middle of COVID. This was May 2020. Yeah. And it's damning that he went and bought antiseptic wipes.
This is what I hate about the recent use of things like Google searches. We saw this in the case of Taylor Shabusiness, and while that chick definitely seems to have killed that guy and been guilty of it, I mean, there's no question there. But they had her search for what was his name?
Jeffrey
oh my
Dahmer.
Gosh, yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer. Her Jeffrey Dahmer Google searches in there, and it's like, wait, that's a Google search about something that's not really uncommon. Like Jeffrey Dahmer is one of the most ubiquitous serial killers, also from Wisconsin. People searching about him isn't really a thing. Here you have someone searching for the open time for a Walmart. That's just incidental. I search for the opening times of various places all the time on my phone because shockingly, I don't know when every place opens. And I hate that they get to use this because how is that probative of any fact at all? Like, what fact is him finding out the open time of a Walmart? What is that showing? But the inference that they're able to allow the jury to draw from that is that he's doing it for the purposes of cleaning up after a murder, because he goes and he buys some wipes, like some antiseptic wipes. Are those even good? Never mind. Don't answer that question, any of you. But like this idea that a guy goes and buys some basic household supplies, not even a solid cleaning kit that I would consider.
On his way to a housing demolition work site.
Right. So yeah, it's like, what are the sardines for? I need to know the secret of sardine body disposal. But what prosecutors are allowed to get away with under the rules of evidence here should not be allowed. I mean, that's not probative. Show me a series of facts that leads me to why this thing is useful to prove something else. Not, well, he looked up when Walmart opened and then he went and bought some stuff that could be used to clean up something somewhere. It's like, tie me to the crime. Give me a text message. Show me that he's, actively looking for something else. Show me some bloody, gloves or something that you find that connect it to this search. Without that, though, what do we have? And I hate this aspect of what prosecutors are doing these days.
Yeah, I mean, if you Googled like how to dispose of a body, maybe that would be a little bit more relevant. But it's just not. It's a normal search that anybody would make.
Right, and a normal set of purchases.
As it turns out, he enjoys sardines, and furthermore, in the news media, the now judge and former DDA in Kenosha, Angelina Gabrielle, even made statements in the bond hearings that there was an open can of sardines underneath his seat, implying that he had opened sardines in his van to cover up a heinous smell. Well, it was later found that they were closed. It was just a clear lid on the sardines, and there was no open can of sardines, and that she she completely fabricated evidence multiple times in the bail hearing. So we have someone who's now a judge making rulings that felt like she could be compelled or had it within her rights to just lie to the court in order to get this charged and to make sure that she got a very high bail on my brother, so he wouldn't be able to, live his life or really organize his defense whatsoever.
As a nationally recognized expert on smells, I don't know if anybody knows this, but if you have a foul, rotting odor in your car, like a rotting or decomposing body, a can of sardines, open or not, is not covering it up. Like that's not going to do it. There's no
make it
way.
Worse.
Like what is the logic here? Again, it's what you're saying. These people they have a license to lie because who's going to prosecute them for their perjury? Themselves? No, they'll pat themselves in the back. It's ridiculous.
And spoiler alert here, the cops were called to Zachariah Anderson's house. the day after, 2 days after the murder, but not by anyone we would suspect. Who's Michael Campbell? Michael Campbell's our first person of interest. Who is Michael Campbell?
Michael Campbell is the subject of the Denny motion. We had mentioned that earlier. The defense had dug up enough information on Michael Campbell that included the fact that he was dishonest about the last time that he saw the victim. He was the first person to show up at the crime scene unannounced, just rolling in and talking to the police. He also had some exchange with Rosario about money being owed between the two of them, and I've seen it said both ways. But in the Denny motion, it stated that that Michael owed Rosario some money, but for what, I'm not sure. He took the stand. He lied about his whereabouts in the last time that he saw him, which was the morning of the disappearance. So at 1:45 a.m. It was about bar time. From the Saturday night bar shift, early morning on Sunday, he shows up at Rosario's house according to his phone GPS, and they just glazed past it. Michael Campbell shows up at the crime scene 2 days later on the 19th, somewhere around between 2:30 and 3 p.m. He talks to the police. He leaves. He messages on social media after he leaves, somewhere around, I think, 3:40, 4 p.m. And then goes home. His girlfriend digs up Sadie and my brother, and he and Brandon, one of his good buddies, drive the two of them all the way up. So it's about an hour away. So give or take an hour north to my brother's house. That's on the other side of Milwaukee, all the way to the north side of Milwaukee.
I don't want to cut you off too much. Let's listen to his testimony. Let's listen to him testify about where he was or what. Now, remind you, they're saying the murder happened on the evening of May 17th. And this is the timeline of where he was in his own words.
May 17th, 2020, your phone pings at Mr. Gutierrez's apartment.
Okay.
Remember texting your mother?
He's at the murder scene on the day of the murder. Okay.
Mother in the morning of Monday, May 18th, asking her if she could take you to two banks.
And this is weird.
I'm sure. I have a good relationship with my mom.
He asks his mother to take him to two separate banks the day after the murder was alleged to have occurred.
Lived in my home.
Why would she need to take you to the banks, though, if you used her car on your own?
Maybe we were going to breakfast, lunch. I don't know.
And do you remember why you had to go to the banks on Monday, May 18th, 2020?
I had bills to pay, so probably depositing money or withdrawing money.
Probably.
Do you remember sometime around May 19th, 2020, having items in a trailer attached to your truck that were going to be disposed of?
Yeah, I do flooring, so there's always a lot of stuff to get rid of.
And did you ever have an inquiry from, I'd asked you about Mr. Hunt before, Mr. Hunt, John Hunt, asking if he could have a carpet that was in the back of your trailer?
Jackson, that's hearsay. What Mr. Hunt said would be hearsay.
Well, the statement, can I have a carpet, which is in your trailer, to the extent that it suggests there was a carpet in the trailer, that hearsay-ish. The inquiry, can I have it, is not an assertion. Rephrase your question.
Did you have around May 19th, 2020, a rolled up carpet in your trailer?
I'm sure, yeah.
And do you remember a time where John Hunt asked you if he could have that carpet?
I don't remember what time it was that he had asked me, but I told him no, because the houses that we worked on were obviously terrible. So why would he want carpet that was probably saturated in dog urine? So yeah, I told him no. you can't have it.
I'm watching Nick
Okay.
lose brain cells
Yeah.
as that happened. So
yeah, so just let's get rid of Gravelly's ugly mug here for just a quick second. So what we have is the guy saying, I was there on the morning of the 17th. The 18th, we go to two separate banks where I don't know what I was doing, but I was probably either getting money or depositing money. Yeah. The 19th, 2 days after the murder. So the guy that's there that has a roll of carpet in his house, a neighbor comes and says, hey, can I have that roll of carpet? And he says no, because it's got dog pee all over it. Me, I don't know how anyone else would answer that question. I'd be like, all right, it's full of dog piss. You want to take it? Be my guest. That's one less thing I got to take to the dump, but you're not bringing it back if you don't want to use it. Once it leaves here is your problem. But just to say, no, you can't even look at this big roll of carpet that I've had here for a day or so, strikes me as odd.
Yeah, that's a weird one because you got to pay to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Like you have to do it. You have to take it there and then you have to pay them. I don't know if people know how dumps work. They don't just take your stuff for free. So that's wild because I mean, it seems like a reasonable person would just say, I mean, if you want it, I don't care, take it. Like you do it. I'm not touching that thing. It's gross.
Yeah. Time, effort, and expense would lead a reasonable person to say, yeah, sure. It's all yours.
Yeah,
and even a woman's perspective, Chandler thought it was weird. What were you saying your answer would be, Chandler, when we talked about this?
Well, I just thought it was odd because I thought that essentially, well, I mean, it's just what everybody's saying. It's like, what, no, this is my trash, my precious, you can't have it. I mean, it saves you a trip. It saves you money. You don't have to deal with it. It's heavy. It's a schlep. Like you have to really, it was a big roll of carpet from my understanding. So he has to load that thing into the truck. He has to drive it all the way there. It's very odd. It's suspicious to me. And also, it could be cleaned. I don't really know how much, but it's like, why was he so attached to it in the first place?
I thought even you had the woman's answer, which was, I mean, the dude's just like, yeah, just take the thing. You said, well, I would show him the carpet and say, do you still want this?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. You don't have to explain to somebody that what you're holding is soiled. You just unroll it and show them, like, this is what it looks like. Do you still want it? Demonstrate visually. It's very easy to do. Or you can smell the carpet also. It's a sensory experience.
So in the Denny motion, it also outlines that John Hunt wanted the carpet to put on his outside patio. He didn't want it for in his house. He didn't give a shit that it had dog piss on it. It didn't matter to him. It was going to be outside. So for that whole exchange, for him to be like, why you don't want it? No, you can't have it. One, it doesn't make sense because, like you said, it just costs him more money. Two, he didn't even ask the purpose or discuss the purpose in that line of questioning for us. But three, which was another issue, is that I believe in an interview since, he even said that he's only gone to that dump near the city of Kenosha one time, and it was on that occurrence that he went to that dump. Otherwise, he doesn't bring his refuse there. So then why did he bring it there the one time as opposed to going to his regular dump site? There's just a bunch of things that don't add up about this testimony.
And we get more. So what does he do after this? He goes and pays Zach a visit.
So that's where I was going earlier, all the way to the north side of Milwaukee.
First, or did he notice you first, if you could tell?
So yeah, he doesn't just roll up and knock on the door. I think he said he knocked on the door, there was no answer. So he went around to the back of Zachariah Anderson's house and confronted him in the backyard of his own house.
So what they did, because the front of Zach's house is a closed off porch, you can't walk up any stairs to it. The railing is completely closed off. So they were looking at it and then trying to peek in the windows as they circled the house. My brother was outside cleaning out his van, cleaning out his vehicle and throwing things away. And he said, "Can I help you?" to them as they were rounding the building. So they trespassed on his property. He has a relatively long driveway, and they're trying to peek into his windows, and he sees them. Then these gentlemen confront him.
Yeah, that's weird. Why are they going around the building?
Yeah, into the dude's backyard. And then the conversation they have goes this
first, or did he notice you first, if you could tell?
Honestly, when I walked up, it seemed like he kind of had his back to us throwing something in a dumpster. And so I believe I noticed him first.
Okay. And who said something first between them? Okay. And what did you say to the defendant?
Said, hey, I'm here to look for Zachariah Anderson. It's about a friend that is missing that I have belief that you have something to do with it.
What, if anything, what did the defendant say when you said, I'm looking for Zachariah Anderson and I am concerned he might have something to do with my missing friend? What did he say, if anything?
He denied that it was himself. Said he was his brother or something. And that he said he was going to call him or something.
And what happened next?
He went inside.
He is who?
Zach.
Okay, that's the defendant?
Yes.
Okay, then what happened?
He went inside and I don't know what he did. Obviously, he was inside.
Okay, so I mean, this is a guy that rolls up on some dude's house and goes, "Hey, are you Nick Rekieta? I think you had something to do with my friend's murder." And it's weird that he's like, "I don't know who the hell you're talking about, Nick. Would you go? Yeah, that was me, or what would you do?"
Well, probably. I probably did, but the list of people I've murdered recently is long, so I got to go get my reference list out of the back. I don't know. That's a weird thing. Like, first of all, why are you driving up to confront someone about a friend's murder
that nobody knows about yet?
Right.
They just know he's not there. And the only reason he knows that he suspects Zach may have had something to do with it, if I recall correctly, was Sadie posted something online.
No, Sadie was at the crime scene when he showed up.
Okay.
And then he went home, and his girlfriend at the time, his fiance at the time, then looked up Sadie based on some rumors. This is what they testified to, and then found, basically a court record of Zach and Sadie's, history or something, and then found Zach's address, and then they went to pay both of them a visit.
Yeah, so that's the interesting. They roll up on the dude. They they trespass into his backyard and say, "We're looking for this guy we think has something to do with the disappearance of my friend. Have you seen him?" He's like, "Hey, I don't know." That's what I'd be like, "I don't know what you're talking about. It's not me." And I'd go in the house, which is what he did. I don't know why that's suspicious. Other places, this guy would have had, he would have gained a few ounces of lead in him in some places. If you just roll up on someone and start accusing them of doing something nefarious, that can lead to some unintentional consequences. Just a second. Chandler has a point. We'll get to you in just a quick second. So then he leads and they go to Sadie's house, which is 30 minutes away?
Yeah, about 20 minutes away from his house.
So he goes to Sadie's house, the ex-girlfriend, and he said just to see if there was something shady going on. Said they parked in a parking lot. They just watched the house for a few minutes. Nothing weird was happening. So they left. And then it was because Zach's house was on the way home, they drove past his house again. But what happened between this is the interesting thing. Again, semi-rhetorical question for Mr. Nick Rekieta, who doesn't know the answer to this question. People roll up on your house. They ask you, are you this person? You say, I don't know who you're talking about. You go in the house. Do you call the police after someone has fingered you for possibly murdering their friend and invite them to your house?
I didn't know murdering my friend, their friend, would get me fingered. But that being said, I mean, it kind of depends on the circumstances. But I think going in your house and locking the doors and not coming out is a good thing. If the people persist in remaining there, then maybe you call the police, maybe not. I don't know. Seems like it's reasonable for someone to go inside and call the police. Mm-hmm. Honestly,
and
you got people walking.
What he did.
Wait, the murderer walked in his house and called the police about the guy people accusing him of murder of someone that no one else knows is murdered.
Exactly.
Well, it's not the best plan, I guess.
If you
believe that, right? Like if you believe that circumstance, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. All I know is if I murder somebody and somebody comes to my house to confront me about it, the first people I want to call are 911 because they can protect me in this scenario. I trust them for sure.
I do want to point out that that to my brother's perception, one of the two men was armed. So in his mind, one of them was armed, and he wanted to try and protect his girlfriend who was in the house. And that's not Sadie, by the way. He was dating someone else. So he had his girlfriend in the house. These two men showed up. One of them appears to be armed. So of course he deflects and buys time. Like, oh no, I'm his brother. What can I do for you? And then goes inside and then contacts my eldest brother and the police. So that was the course of action leading up to his arrest. And then the cops show up after he calls 911 and arrest him. So he was befuddled. He calls for help.
It's very strange.
And then they throw him in cuffs and take him to the station.
Yeah, I mean that just is the most ludicrous thing to think that if you've murdered someone and it's only a couple of days since, then two guys roll up and go, "We think you had something to do with this disappearance." The last people you're going to call is 911 and go, "Hey, there's two people here that are accusing me of shit," or whatever he said in the 911 tapes. That's just not something that you do. But he did, and then they said they went to Sadie's house, and then because Zach's house was on the way home, they just drove past on the way home, and they noticed there was a lot of cop cars there. Why is that a problem, Solomon?
Well, it's not on the way home. So, Nick, are you familiar with the Milwaukee freeway structure at all?
No, I've driven past it, but I don't think I've been through Milwaukee.
There's two main north-south freeways that run north of Milwaukee. One of them is I-45, one of them is I-43, or 41, 45, and 43. Sadie's house is right off of 41, 40, 45, like literally 3 blocks from the on-ramp, right?
Sure.
Zach's house is right off of I-43 on the other side of Milwaukee. So you have to drive country roads across straight west to Sadie's house. And on the way home, you would have to drive country roads straight east to then drive south again, when you could just jump on the freeway and drive down to Kenosha. So logically, it doesn't make sense. And realistically, it doesn't make sense because he claims they're using GPS. And if they just punched home in the GPS, they would have hopped right on the freeway and driven home. They would never have bothered driving past my brother's house again.
They drove 30 minutes out of their way because it was on the way home.
That's what I do all the time.
Yeah.
It's like this weird. It's weird.
It depends how desperately you want to get home. Yeah. Sometimes you want to take the scenic route. But I mean, like, this is just 30 minutes out of the way. Come on, people. You really expect anyone to believe that?
And so, I mean, this guy was never looked into. The guy who was at the house, pinged at the house on the day of the murder, that weirdly went to 2 different banks with his mother driving him, not driving his own car. Then he has a bunch of stuff to dispose of, doesn't want to let his friend look at this big roll of carpet that's over there, just refuses to give it to him, then rolls up on someone and points the finger at someone else. He's not even looked at as a potential suspect.
That's wild. Why isn't anybody asking him how he knows this guy's dead?
We have no idea. Well, he said my missing friend, I think that was quoted.
Missing friend. Okay.
And we don't know. He was also the first person to announce on social media, and which is interesting because he interfered with a police investigation. That's criminal offense, right? He also posts on social media, contact Kenosha PD or my cell phone number with any information. Like literally posts his cell phone number with any information regarding my missing friend, which is really strange.
I'll mildly push back on that. I can get that. Like if someone's like, "Oh, hey, we went out drinking, he's just still passed out or something," like maybe you don't need the police. Like they could just call you if you're trying to aggregate information. It's not the most normal thing, but I don't know if I put that one down as overly suspicious. But given the context of everything else, him being the first guy to call it out, that's pretty weird. And like the missingness of him is it's literally like the morning, right? Like it's not this.
It's in like 2 days at this point. It's just like, I mean,
okay.
My friend doesn't text me for 2 days.
Grown ass man, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm very concerned that I'm not hearing from my friend. You know, we have a very close relationship, and I haven't heard anything from him for like less than 48 hours. I mean, are you serious?
I mean, the only people I have that kind of relationship with is my wife. That's it. That's the only person I'd be very confused about. Everybody else, I mean, 2 days.
Well, I made the comment during the trial that if I drop dead of a heart attack right now, the first time anyone would know is when the neighbors complained of the smell.
Yeah,
because nobody's just up in my grill 24 going, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Text me. Nobody's doing that.
And Nick, the statement where he made that Facebook statement is actually after he was at the crime scene. So he was aware that something was wrong. He was aware that the police were there and investigating. And then he posts, contact KPD or me.
Yeah, that changes the scenario a little bit for me. Thank you for clearing that up. Because yeah, if you know police are like actively investigating, you've seen the crime scene, that's when the police handle it, not you, ever at that point. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't clear on that originally. That makes it a lot weirder. So I don't know, man. Well, I hate laughing at any of this shit because it's so serious. Like, and don't take my levity for that, but it's just the way this stuff works out is so damn frustrating. And like, you're looking at courts like you're supposed to be the arbiters of justice, and here you have injustice, and the things leading up to it is all this comical incompetence that we see over and over and over again. And there's nothing we could do but like preach it and then laugh at it, because it's like,
well, unfortunately, somehow the jury bought it, and that's kind of the problem. I mean, if I may point out one other thing about Michael Campbell that I think is really important to know, Rosalia Gutierrez regularly borrowed money from him. He owed him money on a regular basis. He was constantly borrowing money from him, to my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, Solomon, but at the time that he went missing, I believe that he owed him a certain sum of money. I don't know how much money that was, but it was apparently less than $1,000. They tried to bring it in, and Gravely, wanted it to be, he didn't want it to come in because he said that it was less than $1,000 and it wasn't that important. But don't you ever see, like, I see headlines all the time, like, a guy kills another guy over like a KFC chicken sandwich. You can kill people over a very small amount of money. It doesn't really matter how much money is owed. Somebody can get angry and get really frustrated if somebody's not regularly paying them back. So I felt like that was important evidence they kept out. And I don't know why.
Not only that, we saw a case where there was Not only that, we saw a case where there was an individual that was murdered over sweet and sour sauce from McDonald's. So, I mean, the amount of money, it's the peppercorn theory. It doesn't need to be of value to anybody else. It just needs to be something worth something to somebody that they're willing to kill over. That's all it really needs to be.
The trader agreed.
To quote Samuel L. Jackson as Shaft, he's like, $20,000. I know brothers who will clear out an entire zip code for that kind of change, right? Like, the value of what something is highly dependent on the people involved. And just because someone owes you a small amount of money, it's not about the money, right? Like, it's about the fact that they told you they'd pay you back. Maybe this is something that's gone back and forth. There's other stuff. This is the thing that does it, that sets you off. Like, this jackass is just, is constantly jerking me around. And that's what sets people off to murder something, is almost never rational, because rational people don't murder people most of the time. Right? Like, so he's like, well, that doesn't seem like something I do. Well, no, you aren't murdering people.
Just look at John Wick. You kill some guy's dog, and we're up to over 1,000 bodies so far in the John Wick saga. You just whatever sets people off.
Yeah.
But I don't even think, to me, Campbell is the main suspect for a lot of people. For me, I think the shadiest person in this is this next woman we're going to meet. We have Rosalio Gutierrez, who's involved in a relationship with Zach's ex-girlfriend, Sadie. While they're involved in this, he is meeting other women on Facebook Meets, or Facebook, whatever the hell their dating part of that is. And he is trying to hook up with this other woman who conveniently is, I believe, a court clerk in another jurisdiction. And the night of the murders, she's supposed to meet with him at 9 p.m., right around the time they're saying the murders were supposed to have occurred. And she's the one that allegedly went to the wrong place, that met with Gravely later, that he inserted himself into the case for. There's a whole bunch of really weird text messages that do and do not go on between her and the alleged victim. That's what I wanted to look at next. was how she figures into this, because she, to me, is the most suspicious person, and again, was never even for a brief minute considered a suspect. She was considered one of the state's star witnesses. Let's check this.
And you send a text that says, "Okay, no worries. I love driving. It'll give me time to jam more. I'm gonna start leaving my house."
So that was her deciding she's going to leave the house. It's a 37-minute drive, apparently, from her house to the meeting point. And she says she's going to go see him. They're going to go out on a date. And she leaves her home at 8:24, says, "I'll be there in 37 minutes, which puts her there at 9 o'clock. Or does it?
I was at 8:24, correct?
Yes.
Your plan was to meet at 9, correct?
Correct.
So 37 minutes from 8:24 would be around 9 p.m., correct?
Correct.
You said that you're there, I'm here, at 9:43 p.m., correct?
Yeah, so she should have been there at 9. She shows up to the meeting point at 9:43.
So
and it's the first date. Yeah. So they've never met anybody. They've never met each other. This is their first meeting, and she shows up allegedly 43 minutes late. So what was their agreement? What was her excuse? What was the, "Hey honey, I'm going to be a few minutes late," or "Hey babe, let's meet here"?
Yes.
And prior to that, you didn't text Mr. Gutierrez that you were running 40 minutes behind, did you?
No, I did not.
You didn't call him and tell him you were running behind, correct?
No, I did not.
And he didn't call you asking you where you were, correct?
No.
And he didn't text you asking where you were.
So this is their first meeting. She shows up 43 minutes late, never says, "I'm going to be late, I'm running." He never asks, "Where the hell are you? We're supposed to meet at 3/4 of an hour ago." I find that really weird.
Yeah, that's a little strange. Dude must be thirsty.
I mean,
yeah.
Go home.
There's some truth there, but so there's some other things that occur with this.
Yeah.
She has deleted messages, and I think we're going to get to that.
Yep, right here.
Sorry. Is there an answer?
No.
You said that you were waiting outside for him to come out. Did you talk about that he would come out to meet you?
I think his plan was maybe for me to come in, but I would not go in there. My plan was just to sit outside, maybe in the car, and just get to know each other.
So his plan was for you to come in, but your plan was for him to come out.
Correct.
So what plan did you make that you solidified of what would happen when you arrived there at 9 p.m.?
And this fact, she cannot answer the question of what they finally agreed upon. Just blink, blink, blink. I'm not a big body language expert guy, but this says I'm really trying to think of an answer to me. Because she gets there 43 minutes late, doesn't say she's running late, he doesn't ask where she is, no calls, no text. She said they were going to drive around together. Then she says she's planning to wait for him to come out of the house, but she's saying he wants her to go into the house. So what did you do?
She also claims that she thought that he was in the shower or something, and that's why she waited. But they had an exchange a little bit earlier that night that he was just stepping out of the shower and he was about to take his daughter to her mother's house. So he very specifically had told her literally maybe an hour, 2 hours before this exchange that he was just out of the shower. So it's clear that she's just lying.
And I want to make a comment as a woman, if I may. Just as a woman, if you're going to go on a date with a man and you're going to meet him at his apartment, okay, wouldn't be my choice, but, that's what she wants to do. You're not going to make a plan as to exactly, if you're going to come inside, if he's going to come out, if her whole thing was like, he's going to come out and we're going to get to know each other in the car, you would say that, and you wouldn't drive the whole way without knowing what you're doing with that guy first. I'm sorry, but I feel like most women have some degree of caution. If they're meeting a first date for the first time, they're going to be a little careful and they're going to figure things out. Maybe she just was really stupid but, are really, brazen. But I just don't understand that from the perspective of a woman, having gone on first dates. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and then
she know how serious to be, struggling hard.
I mean, she's got to be real thirsty, man. They claim that they're gonna, talk about milk and Jesus.
What if there's a cake inside, Chandler? I think a cake might get her inside the apartment.
I guess we have different standards. I don't know.
Dude, she would have went in for a Twinkie, let alone a cake. Come on.
Am I just being holier than thou? Okay, never mind. Forget it.
No. I'm just saying her face is rounder than yours.
Well,
she would go inside for a cake, not cake, actual cake.
I think you just want to fat shame somebody, Nick. You're in need of it.
I've got more fat shaming in my bones than she has adipose tissue around hers.
Yikes! Okay, but she's gonna come up, getting it back on track. She's gonna come up with this explanation, and this why did you wait? She comes up with her reasoning for this after she talks to Gravely.
Yeah.
What plan did I make? I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
You just testified, previously you testified that the plan was he was gonna come out and you guys were gonna go for a ride together. Just now you testified that he wanted the plan according to him was that you were gonna come inside.
I'm saying I'm thinking maybe he wanted me to come in. I don't know what was he thinking, but I can tell you that my plan was for him to come out. I don't know if it was.
Okay, so that was just your plan. That wasn't something that you guys discussed and agreed on.
Phrasing.
But you said
nice.
that,
I'm biting inside of my tongue.
Right, so you said you pulled your car up, that you were back by the dumpster, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this is her explanation of how all of this big misunderstanding occurred. And by the way, she stuck around till 10:18, I believe. So an hour and 18 minutes she allegedly waited for him, which in a real life scenario should be like, mother effer, doesn't even call me. And he would be like, I ain't waiting around for some woman for an hour. If she's here, I'll go elsewhere. But we'll talk. It is. And we'll talk about another interesting piece here in just a minute after we get done with her. But this is how she ends up explaining all of this thing that happened. But again, there's no communication.
And pulled your car up to a closer up spot.
Correct.
Which would be approximately 10 feet from the building, correct?
Correct.
With your lights on.
Correct.
And you're saying you didn't look and read what you read today, which was 3709.
She parked in front of the wrong building is the explanation she came up with after talking to Gravely.
Which makes so much sense.
Yeah. And she's parked 10 feet in front of the building with her lights on, and she can't see the numbers that take up the entire top of the door frame. That's her explanation, and she's sticking to it.
Apartment building number. You didn't read it.
No, I didn't. I was more worried for him to even come out. I was nervous.
You didn't read any of, on May 17th, 2020, you didn't look at the apartment building number.
On May when?
17th, 2000?
No, because it was dark and it was rainy.
You said you had your lights on?
Yes, but my vehicle is not that. It was an old Toyota that I had that's not even that bright. So I couldn't even see myself. That's why I said I wait for him to come out. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, so her vehicle is old and the lights don't shine 10 feet in front of her, but she drove in those conditions, 37, 40 minutes to get there. Doesn't sound very safe to me or logical.
Well, not only did she drive in those conditions, but she drove all the way there and then didn't even figure out if she was at the right place and didn't even contact him to figure out what was going on or, where he was. I'm very confused.
Because Google told her where she was.
What makes it worse, so we actually have the pictures of the building, the wrong building that she claimed she was at from all 4 locations that she claimed, that she parked in
4 different places
that you can very clearly see well-lit address numbers from all 4 locations. So at night, it's just, it doesn't make sense.
but she's talked to Gravely. So
yeah, this whole thing is weird. Like, so you sit there for an hour and 18 minutes. You don't have any conversation. You don't know if you're at the right place. You don't go knock on the door. Nothing. It's so strange.
She was just patiently waiting for the D to come to her, essentially, and it never did. He ghosted her.
So here on this, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 different locations that she parks in. All of them listed out. She actually points to them during the trial with the judge's little pointer stick. But this is just one shot of them, and then you can see that it's building 17 right there, 3717 right underneath that light, and that's from the vantage, right? So that's from the parking spot. She pulls up. You see that parking spot number 3 right in front of the building, like right in front of the building. She claims that she couldn't see the numbers there. It's
10 feet.
Absolutely no way. There's no way that she couldn't see that.
Well, Solomon, I'm a little confused. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I wasn't aware of this part of her testimony that she said she parked in 4 different spots. Was she telling 4 different stories as to where her vehicle was, or was she saying that she went from one spot to another, to another, to another?
One spot to another, to another, to another. She said that she was like moving musical parking spots, just moving around the parking lot. And in that, when you're unsure if you're in the right location, you're looking at the building to see if they're there, because she testified to seeing a large black woman and a young Latino man both through the window by the stairwell in the main hallway. So she claims that she's looking through the doorway and she can see clearly the description of these 2 people, but she didn't bother looking at the sign that has the address bar on top of it. Bullshit.
And she's not calling Rosalio and saying, "Hey, I'm at this location. Does your house have like a lattice on the front, or whatever?" She's not asking him questions.
Right.
She's just like parking and then waiting and then parking somewhere else without contacting him at all. So she's not. No.
How's he supposed to find her? Like, how's any of this supposed to work with your weird plans, lady?
Gravely tells her how to do it.
To this text message at 9:43. Okay. 43 minutes after you were supposed to be there. Yeah. And you then leave at 10:18. According to this. Yes. Okay, so you didn't discuss that when you had the phone call with him earlier then?
Gravely. Right?
We just planned to just meet up with each other. That was the plan.
At 9 p.m.?
Yes. It could have been earlier, but he had to drop off his kids, and I respect that.
It's just none of this makes sense. It really doesn't. And the only time she kind of decides that what happened, to make a long story short here, is Gravely. She talked to Gravely. She went to she went to the police without being asked, just of her own volition, the next day. And go ahead, tell
the
us
day after. So she doesn't know that Rosalio is missing. At 8 a.m. on the morning of the 19th of May, which is 3 hours before Sadie finds the crime scene. All right, so Sadie, Zach's baby's mama, finds the crime scene at about 11 a.m., just before 11 a.m. 3 hours before that, she's taking screenshots of her conversation or text messages with Rosalio. So on her iPhone, taking screenshots. She claims that she did that when she saw social media posts, which didn't happen until like 3:30 p.m. later that day. And then goes to the police station the following morning on the 20th to tell the police that she believes that she was the last person to speak with him, with missing dude.
Okay.
They never download her phone. They only find that she's deleted or left out text messages between herself and Rosalio based on Rosalio's phone downloads, which happened later, and they never investigate her whatsoever. She specifically uses her work email header from the court system to send the email correspondence to the detectives, and then they just never look at it again.
Yeah.
And all of
Probably
this
'cause
is
it's
on
got
this
that
on the
court
video.
header on it.
Yeah. And all of this is on this video. The full video, again, the links are there in chat. Go check out. You can see the text messages that are being sent. You can see the timestamps on the screenshots, and you can hear her explanation. And then the overall explanation was Gravely said, "Let's all go meet up there." And he says, "I'm here. Where are you?" And she says, I'm where I was. And she said, "Well, Google Maps told me to go here. So I was at the place." And then he said, "Oh, you're at a different place." It's weird. It really doesn't make any sense.
None of this case makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like
And-
how
and
people
she-
are conducting themselves is just wild. Like the whole thing. But you guys all know this, of course.
Yeah. Well, and she was never even looked at as a suspect when she literally may have been the last person to see him alive. She was supposed to meet him at the time of the murder. There's 43 minutes of missing time in front of his damn house. She's doing these weird screen capture things. Not a moment questioning her as a potential suspect or even a person of interest. Just someone who's helping the police.
Verified to be at the crime scene during the alleged time of the murder. Verified. The one person. It's unconscionable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's to me, she's the most suspicious of all of them. Right. Her story just really, really smells. But again, there's people that are going, well, there are problems with Zach's case. I think the two big ones are the time. Again, is his phone didn't move from 7:30 to 11 p.m. So Gravely was saying he's off the grid, which he wasn't. But let me bring up this one screenshot because I think this is a very, very important thing here. Then we do, because I know Nick has about an hour. What time do you have to leave, Nick?
In time to start my stream in an hour.
Okay, so I did have a hard out, but I've been able to bump that back about 35-40 minutes. So we got about 35-40 minutes here, and we still do have a lot of ground to cover. So I just wanted to put this screen capture up here. Let me pull it. This is a graph that shows something that I think is very interesting about the movements of various people during the time in question. Let's see, 58 mark. Okay. All right. Gravely says he's off grid from 7:30 to 11 p.m. He says that's exactly the time that he would need to go to the murder scene, commit the murder, put him in the van, and go back home. It's weird that he was gone for that exact amount of time, which I think a lot of people find problematic. But we've got the thing we mentioned a bit earlier that I wish I could bring up this graphic. I wish it was flat on the screen. With the way the video,
we could pull it up on the website. I could share it if you want me to.
Well, I think the we can see enough of it here, and it kind of makes the point that I wanted to make. Is if you take the fastest route that gets him there and back in the time frame, you have to go past what we talked about earlier. These 32 freeway cameras. None of them show him there at any time, coming or going. If he goes the long way around to avoid the freeway, he doesn't get home till after 11:44 p.m. But while this is going on, Gutierrez's phone is on a call with some woman named Kim Lavora at 9:06 p.m. He's got a girlfriend with Zach's ex, Sadie. He's supposed to be meeting this other chick at 9 p.m., but at 9:06, he's on the phone with a third woman.
My man is working it.
Yeah.
It's a quick way to get disappeared. Let's face it.
Yeah, so he ends the call at 9:06 with this third woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then his phone you can't really see it here, but it says at 10:10, the orientation of his phone changes. So at 10:10, either he was alive and he moved his phone, or the murderer moved the phone. So someone is there at 10:10 p.m.
And Nick, it's a landscape to portrait change that they testified to in the court.
Yeah, we saw that found his phone in the freezer. Murdoch as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
His phone was in the freezer?
Yeah, his
correct.
phone and I believe his empty wallet was found on the couch, and his credit cards, money, and phone were all found in the freezer. And they didn't discover that until his mom was cleaning out his apartment, took some things out of the freezer, and discovered those items in there.
Not all the credit cards, just some.
Just some? Okay.
Oh, was there only some? Interesting.
It's a good test of my memory. I'm doing spontaneous recall. Thank you, Solomon, for having all the details. Yeah.
That is weird.
Isn't it very weird, Nick?
It is.
I mean,
so you have the dead guy on the phone. Go ahead.
We shouldn't be surprised by incompetent police work anymore. Like watching these trials, even the ones where they get convictions where it seems like the person actually is guilty. I mean, you see it all over the place. Like the stuff that they miss. You just always assume that they do their jobs well. But they do their jobs well enough to fulfill usually their preconceived notion, which is kind of what you guys were alluding to earlier. They picked him first, and then they just they get it in their head they've got their guy, and then everything else falls by the wayside. It's no longer about investigating the crime. It's about proof texting their presumed defendant.
Yeah, and I think this to me, again, clearly shows there should at least be reasonable doubt in this. That he's on the phone with another woman when he's supposed to be with his side piece, and then the phone moves at 10:10, but yet there's no way that Zach could have got back without being seen by multiple freeway cameras, and not to mention the neighborhood cameras and things like that. It's odd that it just didn't happen. And the other problem, I think, was the burn pit. People get hung up on the burn pit. There was a burn pit, and there was like a sock and some buttons found. Talk about the burn pit, Solomon.
Yeah. So my brother grew up in the country, so we burn trash, right? So he has a big burn pit where he has bonfires in the back, and he would throw just about anything on it. There's actually, if they panned a little bit left of the dumpster in the pictures, there's the carcass of an old mattress that he had burned, just all of the springs, all of the metal, because you just throw the crap on there and let it burn.
I live out in the country. I know exactly how this works.
Yeah. So the DA tried to present like he burned one set of clothing in the fire pit, but that wasn't the case at all. There's like sets of buttons and zippers from like 5 or 6 pairs of pants, and they tried to like present this idea that it was like one pair of pants, one pair of socks, one pair of underwear that were burned, like he was trying to cover up this crime. No, there was a crap load of clothing items and remnants that were in that fire pit because he disposed of it there. He got rid of it there. It wasn't a one-time off. It wasn't a one-time disposal of some clothes, and they never identified when that was burned. They never identified it, and they never found anything that connected anything in the burn pit, nothing, not an iota of evidence, to the disappearance of Rosalia Gutierrez. No DNA evidence, nothing. Nothing at Zach's house, nothing in the septic tank, nothing in the traps of the sink or the bathrooms, nothing. Not one piece of evidence.
Oh, and I think that's also an important thing to mention about the actual alleged murder scene itself. They never DNA tested door handles. They never tested the handle on the freezer where the wallet was found. They never tested any DNA or fingerprints on the telephone, on the cell phone that was found in.
They did test DNA on that cell phone, and they found 2 alleles.
That's right.
2
alleles. The untested alleles, right.
That did not match. A 0%. They said there's a 0% match to Zach. So they found and presented exculpatory evidence during the trial, very specifically that somebody that wasn't my brother handled this phone, and it was found in the freezer, but they still convicted him. It just isn't right.
And additionally, there were 2 beer bottles that they did not DNA test that were left in the apartment. I think one of the beers, had been consumed. The other one was, half consumed or almost all the way consumed. Is it possible that they could have tested those beer bottles to figure out whether there was a second person in the apartment drinking that beer with him? I would like to know.
We'll never know. We'll never know.
So they never tested it. Yeah.
And the phone, just making sure I understand, the phone is the victim's phone, right? The alleged victim's phone. And so they tested. Did they test it against the alleged victim's DNA? And he is not a match either. So no match to him, no match to Zach.
They found the victim's DNA So they had the victim, his mother, who found it, Zach,
Right.
like those members that they tested against, and it tested for, I believe, his mother, Celia's, and the victims, but a 0% match. Two estranged alleles that had no match, not even 1%. It's 0% match to Zach. It is
Okay.
specifically exculpatory.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, let's talk about the DNA, because that we'll just let this play, because this is it. This is what they allegedly have against him.
Guys, I said alleged victim because there's no body.
Yeah.
We don't know if this person's a victim. They honestly could have just said, fuck it, and walked away from life.
There's no reason to suspect not.
Well, he did owe child support. He did owe rent to his landlord, and he owed money to several people that he worked with.
Yeah,
So-
and if you're going to do that, you ditch your credit cards. You can't have anything that would allow someone to track you down. If you're going to just start it over, you ditch all that stuff and you start walking or driving or hitchhiking and go somewhere. And then I don't know how you build a life after that, but people manage to do it. They assume some new identity. It's usually not the life we are all accustomed to, with a job and a house and a mortgage and all that stuff. But they go out and live on their own, go find a shack in the wilderness. Who knows? I don't know what they do. I don't care.
Well, one thing I really want to mention really quickly, Rosario Gutierrez put his money in his mother's bank account because, from what I understand, he owed alimony, and alimony could not be collected if his money was in his mother's bank account. So he's a 40-year-old man who, he's putting his money there, which is very, sketchy. It seems to me like he cannot come up with money that he owes to a lot of people, and that would be a very good reason to disappear. I'm just saying.
It was also the other way around. She gave him like an allowance, but right before this disappearance occurred, she had given him $1,000, and he had taken it all out of the joint account that they had together, and all of that money is missing.
And here's the deal with DNA. If you watch any trials and they bring the science people in, they will say, we tested this, we got the DNA, and it's like a 1 in 47 quadrillion chance it wasn't this person. They'll say things like that. This is what we get to say in this case.
And were you concerned about the quantity in terms of decisions you made at that time?
Yes, it was a tiny speck, like a pinhead dot of a dark stain.
Pinhead dot of a dark stain.
Sounds like Gravely.
So why didn't you, if you thought this might be blood, why didn't you do it on this sample?
This sample was so small. I'm like a pinhead size. So again, I just wanted to use every amount that we had available for testing, for the genetic testing.
So they didn't do any blood test on that piece of evidence. They tested everything else in the van, just not that one tiny particular speck, because they wanted, for some reason, to do it for DNA.
Which they ultimately couldn't do anyway, because they didn't have a full DNA profile. So
Gravely looks like that guy in Starship Troopers who they pull out of the freezer, and then he runs outside. He's like, "Oh God, we're all gonna die!" And the bug just lands on him. And he turns into a stain. He looks and sounds like that actor. It drives me nuts. Sorry.
You're not wrong. Oh, that's terrible. But you're not wrong.
You're right.
You got the whole time.
Back on.
Let's hear more of Starship Troopers.
Back in the time period of December 4th, 2020.
Yes, I am.
And did you, in answer to a question in that email, say we could not confirm it was blood in regards to this sample A1?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so how do you reconcile that email with what you're testifying today about? How do you explain that you sent an email that said those words, but this is your testimony and conclusion as we speak?
She had asked me very specifically, can you confirm that it's blood? No, I could not. I did no testing to determine that it was blood. She did not ask my opinion.
Yeah, so they didn't test her for blood. She said she couldn't say it was blood. And then the question from Gravely was, well, in your opinion, was it blood? Yes, in my opinion, it was blood. That's it. Then we go to the DNA. It may not even have been blood.
Asked you about the possibility that it could come from skin cells, and you said that there could have been skin cells present, correct?
Yes, that's possible.
So she says it could have been skin cells. Why would there be skin cells in the back? A skin cell, basically.
I mean,
why
it
would
could
there
be any
why
number
would
of
there
reasons.
be? Yeah.
I mean, it could be transfer DNA. I mean, Rosario had spent time at Sadie's home where Zach and Sadie's children lived. The children also were in the van. So you have Sadie putting belongings of the children in, in the van. You have the children playing in the van. You have all of that for potential for transfer DNA. And as we had mentioned earlier, Rosario himself saying that he's going to go pay Zach a visit and then exchanges the address with Sadie and then goes to Zach's house. We don't know that Rosario didn't go through Zach's van. Is reasonable. Lots of reasonable doubt here.
Right.
I mean, cross-contamination is a serious thing.
Well, also the presence of some skin somewhere with people who have had contact with each other is not like, it's not uncommon. Right. That happens all the time. We've talked about this in some other cases. DNA gets everywhere. The fact that they haven't found Zach's DNA anywhere around the scene of the crime is it's baffling for someone who's alleged to have murdered someone else.
Yeah. And then she goes on to say, she lists the places they did do blood testing, presumptive blood testing, phenolphthalein tests. It was literally the entire interior of the van. But the one tiny little speck on the rear, but that's the one they decided not to test. Yeah, and that's the one that was, that was a miraculous one that happened to be blood.
And they also did luminol tests on the van. And both of those presumptive tests came back negative, totally negative for blood.
Jailhouse snitch.
Oh, God.
Bear in mind, this is a man who, I mean, Zach has not talked to anybody about this for 3 years or however long it was. Just had not talked to anybody. He gets a new cellie and suddenly he starts singing sort of just days after he gets a new cellmate. A cellmate who was charged with possession of 50 kilos of coke, a bunch of meth, 500 pounds of marijuana-ish. He's decided that he needs to come forward and in good conscience say what he heard his cellmate allegedly say.
Minimum 10-year federal charge.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Munch the jail snitch. We'll just let this play through because this is just ridiculous. It goes through Munch's testimony and another witness the defense brought in to say that they approached me and wanted me to testify against him too, and I told them to get wrecked.
Eventually, when he talked about his case or how he would deny things, but thought that he was going to beat the case actually, and that you guys were trying to frame him and he was going to get out.
Zach's face said it all right there.
Yeah.
It appeared to you he was having a nightmare.
It appeared he was having a nightmare. Nick, this was a talking in his sleep confession.
It's a dream confession.
Yes.
It appeared to you he was having a nightmare.
Yes.
And what do you remember about that incident?
I remember I was laying there the night before. I told him about it the next day, but I was laying there and I was reading my book and I heard him shout in his sleep before he woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, die, die. He said, die, 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 motherfucker.
Are you fucking kidding me?
That's the jailhouse confession.
That was admitted? Did they object to that?
They had a whole discussion about this mouthing incident. They brought it to the judge's attention afterwards.
Yeah, somebody saw it on court TV. Somebody saw it on court TV and sent it to Schrader, and they had a whole, they excused the jury for it.
We haven't even got to that part. There's two things going on here. One, it's a while he's asleep confession saying, die, 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 motherfucker. And what's what I hear in the clip is then he jumps down and he says, I heard you talking about this last night. And he said, oh, what did I say? He said, oh, yeah. Oh, and he said, oh, I did it. He said that. Yeah. When he woke up, he said, yeah, I did it, which is just ridiculous. But what Chandler is talking about is gravely mouthing the words to the witness while he's saying them.
Which he did several times throughout the trial with several witnesses, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, watch this again. Watch him coach him was exactly how he's supposed to
die. He said, die, motherfucker.
And you're quoting as best you remember?
Yes.
All right.
This is insane.
And so, did you ever have a discussion with the defendant about?
I'm sorry. They didn't object to that though.
They're not objecting to the dream confession, no. And it was discussed after this about the dream confession and whether or not it was admissible, and the judge ruled that it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, do that for another couple of months, and you'll be where we are.
Exactly.
Did they know the dream confession was coming? Like, I guess you probably wouldn't know that. Like,
it doesn't seem like it.
I don't know how this guy wasn't a pretrial exclusion. I don't know. Never mind.
Yeah.
That's
and
insane.
again,
That's insane.
It is. And until this next moment, the theory of the case was blunt force trauma. He went and took a baseball bat to the victim and clocked him with a baseball bat repeatedly. Until this.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that part.
Nightmare that you heard him have, or these words he said.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and so if you know about how long after that happened, did you bring it up to him?
I brought it up to him the next day.
Okay, and what did you say to him about it?
I pretty much told him, I asked him about the situation about that he was locked up about, and I told him that he was talking in his sleep.
And here's the response.
He said that he had seen this person, and he said he stabbed him, and he blacked out. He said he stabbed him, and I just blacked out.
That's an answer that I don't even think Gravely was ready for, because their entire case had been blunt force trauma up to that point. Now you got the prison snitch saying he stabbed him and stabbed him and stabbed him. And then they had to sort of, in the closing arguments, it was something like, well, the bat or the other blunt force must have broken, so he was forced to resort to a knife. They just totally had to change midstream because of Munch.
And he said he eventually wrapped the body up in garbage bags and got rid of the trash. He threw the trash out. Okay. And I asked him, what did he mean by that? And I said, what, like dumpster or trash? And he said, once it's gone, it's gone.
And he has a nickname in prison as well. This is his alleged prison nickname.
Oh, that's also bullshit.
Nickname did you hear people address the defendant with occasionally?
A lot of times people would say Houdini or Zach Houdini, or, just telling me about who my cellie was.
His nickname was Houdini because he made the body disappear. That was the argument.
No mention of the missing area rug from Rosalia's apartment. No mention of blunt force trauma. No mention of anything else that transpired. Just this fantastic, this imaginary story about how this transpired.
Yeah,
and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, he knows for what, 5 weeks?
Like what?
And the other thing that we've got here, so their theory of the case on blunt force trauma seems to me, I'm not them, but it would seem to account for the lack of blood and DNA. Maybe he just got thunked. It's a below surface injury. Obviously, you don't have to have blood. When you talk about stabbing, there's blood everywhere. Everywhere. It goes all over the place. There's no cleaning it up. There's no hiding it or obscuring it. It's all over. Mist and crap goes all over the place. Oh God, this is infuriating.
Yeah, it's different to the sort of blood dripping from a wound. Yeah. It's literally the stab. It's spraying. We would have been looking at a completely different crime scene photo, honestly.
Right. Unless you could contain it to like, oh, we got him on the area rug, then we stabbed him, then he's dead. You roll it up in the carpet, you get him out of the hallway with nobody seeing, you don't get any of the blood in the hallway or on the way to the van, you get one speck of DNA. When he's like, rolling around in this van, when he's rolled up in this carpet, he manages to dispose of him somehow, who knows, with a back injury. And then he goes about his day, he goes to the accountant to get his taxes done. I mean, none of this makes any sense. Yeah. It's absurd.
I mean, we got to kind of move on here because we've got a lot to get through in the next 10, 15 minutes here, so we can get Nick out, and I've got to run as well. This is more of him.
How could you be helped if you're honest about some other crimes?
What do you mean, like?
Well, like what advantage do you, I mean, what's in it for you, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, leniency on sentencing, I guess.
Okay.
So.
And
So he knows he's going to get a leniency. They're going to put a good word in with the feds for him if he tells what he knows.
You decide you're going to advance the ball on Mr. Anderson's case to help your federal case. We've established that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then on January 17th of 2023, just, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or so, you sit down with.
Yeah, he came into the picture 3 weeks before trial. That's when he decided that, that's when the feds decided that it would be good like 3 weeks before trial, because they tried to bring in this guy here. It's fast forward. Yeah, this was the first guy they tried to get to testify.
Did there come a time when the discussion between you two turned to him talking about jumping on other people's cases?
Yes.
Oh yeah, this is Munch telling this guy how to jump on people's cases.
Him about like to explain that more to you about how he did it or how what his thinking process.
I didn't ask him. He was volunteering his method, I guess you could call it, and he told me what he did, and he found out information about people's cases and whether it was going through their discovery or just asking them or seeing stuff in the news or newspaper and using that to put himself into it by informing detectives that he had information.
And did he say what he would do if he didn't know something about the case?
He would make something up. He said, as far as he was concerned, it was his life or someone else's. And he said, he would do that to save himself.
Seems reasonable for a prison snitch to be doing something like that.
That guy was being honest.
Yes,
That
I was
absolutely on the
offered
up and up.
Yeah.
Consideration on my federal case or testifying for the prosecution if I were to.
Did you consider it?
Yes, I did. Very seriously.
They offered to put the good word in, and the reason he didn't was because he probably didn't want to die in prison. So this guy gets offered a deal. He tells him to get wrecked. I'm not testifying. I'm putting myself at risk, even testifying for the defense. I'm not going to testify for the prosecution. Solomon, this guy is still in prison, right?
Yep. So the guy,
as far as we know,
this guy that's on the screen right there. So he didn't have anything to gain for testifying for the defense whatsoever. He just thought it was the right thing to do. He liked Zach. Zach helped him out in a couple of situations while they were in jail together, and decided that he was going to step up and try to do the right thing. Munch made up this lie.
50 kilograms of coke, a bunch of meth, 500 pounds of weed. Where's Munch?
He's on probation or on parole. Dude's out.
No big deal. It's fine. That's how it normally goes.
I mean, he's on parole.
Justice is served, right? That's how.
I mean, he's just an honest guy. He's just telling the truth, just coming forward with, it was just weighing so heavily on him, obviously.
Doing his civic duty, really, making sure that someone just
obviously.
And there's about 10 minutes left. So we'll get to this last 10 minutes. This is a compilation of prosecutorial misconduct through the eyes of the Kenosha DA's office. The first thing we start off with is burden shifting in a big, big way.
Do testing on those.
Judge, I'm going.
This was them saying, well, the defense had lots of these items they could have done testing on, right?
To object. And if I could be heard outside the presence of the jury on this.
I think the time has come for a break.
It's basically implying, could the defense have had requested those to be tested? It's not relevant what the defense did or didn't do in this case.
Well,
it goes to shifting. It's just not relevant, because at the end of the day, what other purpose of that question is than to try to use it for argument later that the defense had information that they could have asked to be tested, and then that's shifting the burden. We don't have to prove or disprove anything.
And they let it in.
Yep, judge allows it.
The report that basically Exhibit 31 is a screenshot of a tracker that the state and the witness have purported and testified to, that was in the folder named titled.
This is they said that the vehicle was being tracked. The picture they used was a picture of a tracker that was still in the package from Amazon. There was never a tracker found on any vehicle. And this picture was not in the report. This picture of it is still in the package. If I recall correctly, it was a picture of the tracker in the package. It wasn't in the report that the prosecution gave to the defense. And then they found out they didn't even get the full copy of the report.
Yeah, they claimed that it was in the Rosalio Gutierrez folder on Zach's computer.
That photo was in the report. I had never seen that photo before, not included in the report that I have. I had a hard drive from the state, which is here, that contained all of the downloads of the devices in this case. With this witness, I pulled up that report. The witness went through it and just testified that it's not a complete report. This photo cannot be located. The contents of that folder cannot be located in this report that I had. So obviously the defense has an issue now where we are not given a full report. That information I've never had before. I had asked the state where that was located because I couldn't find it prior to today's date. I thought I'd be able to clear things up with this officer or detective, pardon me. And clearly I can't because the defense was never given the full report. So I'd be asking for the full report to be able to go through it, or alternatively, strike all this testimony.
If you're reading my chat or listening, this is what.
Now, this is a weird thing. This is
fun. This is the good bit.
Yeah, and see, this is a guy called Recovering Addict or Recovery Addict.
Okay.
Who was also streaming the trial. And weirdly, some people will say it was Judge Schrader watching his stream during the trial. Others say it was, someone from Law and Cuck. They got the feeds crossed or something. But this guy's stream starts playing over the court audio.
No, hang on. We're being disingenuous there because in this instance, yes, it starts playing over the court. You cannot tell me that in the second instance that Schrader was not watching him. Getting Schrader to scratch his ear during the trial, you can't tell me otherwise. You can't.
Let's watch it. We'll just watch through it. This is just weird. Make your own conclusions.
What you should do right now, ask for him to be escorted out.
It's fair game. Did you ask the jurors to come in? Oh, no.
The fireworks are not done. Why am I hearing this?
Now we're getting commentary.
This is him realizing that his own audio is going out over the court system.
On the 20-second delay.
And this goes on for a while, where he's like, "Oh my God, they're playing me."
Oh my goodness.
Whoa, calm down, homie.
So he goes through and shows his system.
Big fan of you, all of you. You're doing a great job.
And so some people say Schrader was watching. Now, there's the one Aussie was talking about real quickly because we do got to move on. But he says, "Oh, if you're watching, scratch your head," and then Schrader kind of does this scratchy motion. I say it's coincidence because why would Schrader acknowledge to not paying attention during the trial to scratch his head for some guy that only has a couple of viewers? It would make no sense why he would acknowledge that.
Well, see, hang on. It wasn't actually during, the jury wasn't there or anything, though. That was during a period where they were on a break. I have no problems whatsoever thinking that he is sitting there watching that stream because he's heard it earlier. I've got no problems with that whatsoever.
All right. Weirdness, but it's weird that it happened, regardless of how you think about it.
Why would Schrader be watching this guy's thing? Like, why is he watching any stream of the trial at all? Like, why? Yeah. I don't get it. But somebody is. Like, somebody clearly is.
Yeah. Which is odd. And then
that's wild.
The last little bit again is more gravely.
that she thought that the officer who was here, the evidence man,
this was a police officer, turns out to be semi-related to one of the jurors.
She thinks he might be related to her husband, but not closely. And I think, did she say she hadn't even ever met him? Yeah.
I mean,
Evidence
that's
guy related to juror.
completely hearsay. They're
Went
like,
into
oh,
Mr.
but maybe we should make this not sound so serious. She's never met him.
So
It's
wait, he was
just hot garbage.
someone was messaging a juror?
No, one of the jurors' husband is related to one of the detectives.
Oh, okay. And they didn't disclose that?
Right.
Yeah, and they just
That's
tried
cool.
to brush over it. Yeah.
Mr. Gutierrez's car and took his
This is Zach's daughter testifying. The one that couldn't that said 72 marijuana plants, the dry room, the cutting room, that couldn't identify the package. This was also one of these things where Gravely is clearly coaching her on how and what to say. Again, mouthing the words with her.
He went into Mr. Gutierrez's car and took his registration and took a picture of his license plate.
Okay.
I mean, that's twice he's been caught on film doing that.
Yeah.
Literally mouthing it in sync with the witness.
The message, as the court is aware, is that court TV showed a clip where the defendant used his two fingers and placed them over his lips as his daughter was testifying to suggest.
And this is a big thing that they both know sign language. Sadie is a sign language interpreter, and Zach, I guess, picked it up just being in the relationship with her, or did he take classes? Right. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he just learned some basic signs, just being in a relationship with her. Sadie went to school for deaf studies, and so she taught basic sign to the children because you learn sign faster than speech. So when they're toddlers, they learned how to sign basic sign.
And we have this kind of blew up on social media where you have. She was being very obstreperous. The 12-year-old testifying. When she was 14, when she was testifying, she was kind of being a little snarky, a little snotty with even the judge. At one point, kind of told the judge to f himself. She dropped an f bomb on the stand.
No, she told Nicole
I'm
to?
effing trying to answer. Yeah, I'm trying to effing answer the question or something like that.
Yeah.
But during when she's being combative, unnecessarily throwing, Zach just kind of does this. Like you just. I mean, what any father would tell his daughter, being on the sense, like, just, zip it. Not don't testify against me, but just, quiet, calm down.
It was because she was trying to speak to Zach directly because they hadn't seen each other in 33 months. So in between questions, she's trying to lean over and have like a read my lips conversation with my brother. And in that, he's trying to get her to stop because it's not appropriate, and he's trying to get her to stop trying to talk to him, and that's when he pinches his lips.
And at the same time, her mother is signing things like "calm down." So she's throwing sign language at the witness as well. But of course, the social media only focuses on the defendant.
Well, that wasn't caught on camera. Yeah. Sadie was allegedly in the gallery, kind of going, calm down in sign language, which was noticed, and she was actually brought up and questioned about it in kind of like a separate little hearing.
And now we're getting towards the very, very end, and the closing arguments by Gravely were stellar. We're going to get there in just a very quick second.
When the state was asking their question, while asking,
this isn't talking about the sign language.
Mr. Anderson's daughter would look over at him and would mouth something just mouth something. I can't say what it is. I can't say when that happened. I did not personally observe.
So that was him saying, "Stop mouthing."
Gestures. I've watched it now on here, but so I can't say if it was in response to that or not.
There's that handsome Solomon right back there.
Was occurring, and it could be that was a response to her mouthing while the state was asking.
Yeah, it wasn't saying, "Don't you testify against me." It was
after she expressed fear for her children. What happened next in relation to Sadie Beecham?
Due to her concern for the children, she
we've got to move on to the next step. because he's incorporated the objectionable material into the beginning of his next answer.
Yep.
So
Which is a
just
big
what
problem.
happened next is the question.
That guy peppers in his opinion to try and paint Zach poorly in every part of his testimony. He very specifically inserts his opinion in and tries to taint the jury pool with it.
Sadie left to check on her children.
Does it anyway.
I believe closing is next.
You talked on redirect about the unregistered gun in California, but you never saw that firearm, correct?
Do you mind if we skip through this so we can get to the closing? There was testimony that there was a gun that was brought up, but eventually she gets the daughter to say that the gun was actually in California. And the witness that was supposed to, the police witness that was supposed to say there was no gun found anywhere. He was the one that was curiously out of state at his daughter's volleyball competition and couldn't come in and say that. So they just read a stipulation into court that nobody ever pays attention to anyway.
Yeah, those things are super effective.
Yeah. And then we get to Gravely's closing, which his closing is great. He makes this one weird statement, and then what I considered just he should have been acquitted. Zachariah Anderson should have been found not guilty based solely on the closing arguments of Gravely, because that's when you say, here's our case, here's what we proved, here's the evidence against him, find him guilty. Count the number of maybe this happened, maybe that happened, maybe this happened, maybe that happened coming out of Gravely's mouth.
2020. Okay.
So they said that the body was found on 19th, which I think was a misspeak.
Maybe get a this guy might be, maybe they don't know if you're, maybe you can't do, maybe you find, so maybe you are, and so maybe you didn't, maybe, in fact, you might have situation. So you might even blame, you might even need to, so maybe you take.
Those are all of the maybes that he brought up during his own closing argument.
I mean, it's cut up intentionally because of how obscene it is. He also makes a reference to my brother's right to silence in the closing argument, where he says, and then he had a chance to clear everything up, and he turns and he looks at my brother, and then he continues on. Nobody said shit about it. Immediately.
Which is interesting because Gravely had a very strong opinion about, Fifth Amendment violations in Kyle Rittenhouse's case. But in this case, he was very quiet about that. So clearly, he's just kind of really off his game. I don't really think that Schrader cares at this point. But yes, I agree. Mistrial material, absolutely. But Schrader just doesn't give a shit. And it's really infuriating, in my opinion.
I mean, Gravely asked how close to the line he could get multiple times. He was asking the judge for direction on how close to violating my brother's rights he could get before the judge stopped him.
He pushed it. He absolutely pushed it.
That's wild. This is the general background of the case. Again, no lawyer I've seen, even on anywhere that's watched this, has come to the conclusion that he should have been convicted.
I don't even need to see the rest of the case to know this case should have been tossed. I mean, this is clearly a mistrial occurred. Without that, I mean, even the closing argument, all of the maybes, no body, plausible other suspects, reasonable alternatives, a lack of any evidence. I can't find any evidence at all that you guys have shown me, unless there's like a bunch of other witnesses that testified to evidence. You guys are like, well, we'll just hoodwink this idiot.
We're just going to be Gravely and just stick it under the couch and just,
It's that this is insane. I mean, there's nothing to do this, but the problem that comes up with juries, and this is a real issue that we just don't know how to acknowledge, is that they look and they go, well, the police arrested this guy. And we're supposed to be operating from a presumption of innocence, but you're always operating from a presumption of the police arresting the right guy. Like, that's just how most jurors operate. That's how most people operate. What did this person do wrong when they see a cop interacting with someone? And that's a damn shame. I mean, this is pretty egregious, and I've only seen the surface of it.
Exactly. This is only the surface. This is, and not a single juror has come out and spoken about this. Valhalla was just mentioning there in chat. But again, this it's International Wrongful Conviction Day. And this is a good example, I believe, of an ongoing case where someone is serving time for something that was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt from a factual evidentiary basis, who was convicted on the basis of improper prosecutorial actions. We'll call it prosecutorial misconduct, as well as errors of law on the part of the judge.
And judicial bias, frankly, for half the crap that he led into the case itself.
And Nick has given us way more time than he thought he was going to give us. I know you've got a jet. Anything on your way out?
Solomon, it's been fantastic to meet you. I'll do a little bit more looking. I would love to talk to you more about this and the realities of this stuff, and help people, help spread the word of where people can help Zachariah. If you get a chance to talk to him, tell him from what I've seen. I mean, it looks like severe injustice was done, and hopefully he's got some irons in the fire, so to speak, on getting this corrected, because this is insane. Schrader should not have been on this case. That's demonstrably clear. And the prosecutor's office, my God, pray for anyone in Kenosha who comes across them, because that office is terrible, like just terrible. But thank you guys so much for having me on and helping me get up to speed. I'm going to look more into it, and hopefully talk to all of you soon, especially you, Solomon.
Thanks for dropping by, Nick.
Enjoy your tacos.
Have a good night. Thanks. Peace.
And can I just mention, for anybody who came late to the stream, who didn't hear all of the evidence, I mean, I highly advise that you go back through and watch the entire thing. But if you want a quick summary of all of the egregious misconduct that's, neatly put together, we actually composed a letter to write to the Attorney General in Wisconsin, and that very clearly outlines with brevity. Michigan Law Show collaborated on it. I did as well, and it has a list essentially of all of the improper conduct that was engaged in. So that's on Twitter. I've posted that. It's also on the website, and if anybody's interested in sending that letter in, I can post it publicly.
The website is freezachariahanderson.org, and Remy_legal is the Twitter feed, where the X feed, I'm going to say Twitter until they change the website. You can go there, and this video, the link's been put on chat. I'll put it in the video description where you can watch the entire video. So this is a fraction of a fraction we got through here. The video is a fraction of this lengthy trial and all of this, the bullshit that went down. And we've only scratched the surface of the bullshit. You guys want to stick around for some super chats?
Yeah. I have three announcements to make too.
Okay. Do you want to make them now or later? Let's make them now before people leave.
All right. I just want to throw a special thanks out to Excited Utterance for the redesign of the Free Zachariah Anderson logo. You'll be able to see that on the website at freezachariahanderson.org. We also have a couple of things coming up on media. Lou Hillier is doing a breakdown of Sadie's 911 call. So a professional breakdown, peer-reviewed. She actually submitted her review to others to review the 911 call, the issues that she has with it, and the issues with really the psychological foundation of her breakdown of where it came from. So not just behavioral bullshit analytics, but actually the choice of words, tone, and many other things that are factors in that. So Lou's going to be posting that coming up soon, and then a group of supporters are starting a podcast called Wrongful. This podcast is specifically covering deep diving Wisconsin versus Zachariah Anderson, and going into things that we're not able to spend the time going into, or that I really can't go into. So I think that there's some things that they're willing to talk about on that. So check out Wrongful for Free Zachariah Anderson. I think that there's going to be some of those links shared on X. I'll definitely be tweeting out the trailer for that.
Awesome.
And just really quick,
keep us posted.
If I may, Solomon, I would still love to have you on to talk about the OLR standards. I know we've been going back and forth about it, but we should set a date, and I think everybody can look forward to seeing Solomon on my channel sometime soon.
Absolutely. It's a necessity.
Yes.
And I absolutely wanted, and I'm grateful that the Aussie and Chandler both made time to be here because they were with me through the entire trial. We watched it all together from, I believe, day one throughout.
Yes.
Yeah. Very, very few absences, to the point where, again, at the beginning of this trial, I was very, okay, it's just another trial. There's just another guilty guy that's been caught. Let's see what the evidence has, see if the evidence shows anything different. By the end of the first day, because I followed the law and crime, the law and crime banner, which was, what was it? Obsessed boyfriend murder trial or whatever.
Boyfriend murder trial.
Yeah, whatever. That was my thumbnail for the first day too. The exact same wording. And then your sister shows up in stream, and I'm like, yeah, okay, someone claiming to be a family member. I vetted her through Instagram. I'm like, holy crap, it is. And then you and your partner were there, and that's when I said, look, we got family member in here. I'm calling this as I see it. You may not like what I have to say. You stick around if you want, but I'm calling it as I see it. By the end of the first day, I had changed my thumbnail, and it was already convinced there was something wrong with this, just from the opening statements.
Yeah.
And it never went away. And I've never done this. And I know these guys have never done it with the trial either. You watch the trial, you go, all right, they made their verdict, right or wrong. I don't agree with it. Move on to the next one. This stuck with us. And I don't, why did this stick with you, Aussie?
It stuck with me just because of the pure, unadulterated misconduct. Like, it's like, hang on, I've used the wrong word there. The pure evil misconduct. Just the fact that it was obvious and so palpable, because I knew full well that Gravely was going to use that as an excuse in the future to not have cameras in court. I fully expect that application to be coming in every single case that he covers from now on. And it's just, like I said it at the end of the trial, and I'll say it again. For the most part, when we watch trials, at the end of the day, we as content creators move on.
Mm-hmm.
For Solomon, for everybody else, it's their livelihood. It's a part and parcel in their everyday lives. And I think engaging, so I want to say thank you for that, Solomon, and for Zenith, and for everybody else that was involved, because it does bring it home. It makes it more tangible. I mean, to me, this felt like a case that I myself was trying in court. Like, I was that involved in it, and that I felt like I had that much invested in it, that it's not something that I'm ever going to forget or walk away. And for anyone that's wondering, yes, the shirts do actually make it to the imaginary country. Okay? So,
mine's
but yeah.
I know mine's also in the laundry. I slept in it last night, and I got some sauce on it, so I need to wash mine.
I fell asleep preparing. I was washing it when I was preparing last night, and then I woke up and went, crap, it's still in the washing machine.
I have two. I'm gonna buy a sweatshirt also. They're great shirts, and they go towards the appellate fund as well.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the appellate fund, sorry, Jeff. One last thing. One of your guest favorites, Natalie Wisco. We're in the process of retaining her for his appellate counsel.
Wow.
So for all of you that have been working so hard to raise money for us, Natalie Wisco and Richard Slaw, who also represented, Kyle Rittenhouse, we're in the process of retaining them, going through all the contract paperwork. That's what your money is going to. So just so you know, this is
that's
fantastic. You're not going to be able to have her on to talk about it.
I was going to say, that's fantastic for you guys. It sucks for me.
Yeah.
But that's
attorney-client privilege. I'm so happy to hear that, Solomon. That makes me really happy. You're in excellent hands.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be thinking that's awesome. Hey,
Dream
Zenith.
team.
Zenith,
hi.
Yeah, so everybody's like pro now. That's like I said, that's great. Now I got to sucks for me because she's awesome. She's an awesome resource. But I mean, that's fantastic. But Chandler, why did this case stick with you?
Because it could happen to anybody. When I first watched this case, I tend to take the stance of innocent unless proven guilty. And I very closely watched Zach's face throughout a lot of the testimony. And what I saw was a man who was put in the middle of a kangaroo court absolutely bewildered and confused and perplexed as to why the hell he was there. Somebody who just woke up in a Kafkaesque nightmare. I saw his facial expressions, and there was absolutely no indication that, just from my perspective, you know, that he had any knowledge of what was going on. He was bewildered, he was confused, and all of his body language and facial expressions to me indicated a man who just had no idea what was going on. I did not see a guilty man whatsoever. I saw somebody who was caught up, and I also saw a lot of egregious misconduct. You know, I like watching trials because I'm a paralegal and I'm interested in going to law school, and I like learning about, you know, the process. And it's fascinating because I ended up learning a lot about the slimy things that prosecutors do, and I wasn't necessarily expecting that, but it was a good lesson. In any case, I was not expecting him to be convicted, and when he was, I mean, my heart sank. I cried. I felt very personally invested in this case. That surprised me. I'm usually detached.
And Aussie and I, we tag team streamed this, right? I do the morning, he do the afternoon. He got the verdict on his stream. If you go back and watch that, you have an entire panel of lawyers who just sat there, in silence for many seconds, just trying to process what the hell happened.
So before it actually got handed down, we all took a second to effectively write down what we thought the verdict was. Not a single one of us expected them to come back guilty.
No.
And again, find me a lawyer on YouTube who thinks he was justly convicted. I have not seen one. And I've
you know, they always say, like, you ask 10 lawyers the same question, you'll get 10 different answers, right? And in this case, it's just not that. It's not like that. For Zach's case, it's clear, it's evident to people that understand the law that this is wrong.
And I don't want to shrift in. I have people that are being natty outside. They're patiently waiting for me 25 minutes. So let's go through the super chats that we have here in the monthly membership chats and address those points.
Thank them for us, Jeff. We appreciate their patience.
In 11 months, again, seriously, I apologize to the chat because we didn't have enough time to do these things as they come in, and we didn't have time to really address and pull up some of the chat, just the random chats that are going through, because there's so much going on here in such a short amount of time. So I apologize for that. I hope the people that are just watching the 900 or 1,000 or however many we had at peak viewership don't feel shortchanged, like we were ignoring you. We were desperately trying to get through this. Thanks for putting up with it. Tyler Reeves has been a member for 11 months. Thank you so much for the support for 11 months. And Volpe Fox has been a member for 4 months. Says I should have known better than to eat dinner quick. We got off to a little bit of late start because we have to coordinate so much stuff behind the scenes. We got through that, but appreciate you sticking around a little bit longer for us to start a little bit late. Member for 10 months, been there, done that. Good man, says Free Zach. Thank you so much. Cindy Luhoot, Free Zachariah Anderson. MLS, thank you so much. MLS Law Network, Making Law Simple Network. Member for 5 months. Thank you, brother. Free Zachariah Anderson. Go give MLS. I have to keep adding the network on here. The Making Law Simple Network. I'm not used to adding the network on the end. Go check out the channel. Give him a good sub. Give him a good like.
And thank you to David for working on the letter with us. We really appreciate you. You know, David also covered the trial. David's awesome. We love David.
He was one of the, as mentioned, he was one of the people that put together the letter that Chandler's put up on Twitter.
He's been with us the whole time, so I really appreciate his effort a lot.
And Psychotic Doll X, member for 3 months, is using this to thank Manders for the gifted memberships. We had the gifted memberships, and thank you everybody for giving your big thanks to those people. Wolfram, Walmart, Zach getting his unaliving kit, just like Amber had her Bruce kit. Too bad Zach forgot the Amica cream. Yeah. That solves all problems, apparently. Let's see here. Oh, hang on. They are pestering me. There. 10 minutes I gave. Brian Miller with the $5 super chat says, have you ever tried to clean up grease with Clorox wipes? Same situation as blood. You're not going to clean up a massive crime scene in the back of a van with 2 packages of wet wipes. It ain't going to happen. Whether it was Clorox or Lysol, it ain't going to happen. It's just not how it works. Alabama Rose, our new member. Thank you so much for supporting. We deeply appreciate it. Member for 4 months, Kim A says Schrader getting caught watching a YouTube live stream of the trial during the trial should account for something where rulings or judgments missed. We don't know. And again, it's debatable whether it was him or somebody else. And I think it was somebody else. Other people think it was him. Where Aussie and we can have like a YouTuber boxing match to decide what the real case was.
See, 2 lawyers, 2 opinions. That's what this is.
See, this is what it's like. This is what it's like. Mind you, I think we're arguing over 2 separate incidents, but yes, I take your point.
Yeah. King Ginger 333. Honestly, I think Sadie and Michael conspired to kill Rosalio and frame Zach.
Good argument as any.
A lot of theories out there.
Yeah, they were the first to think he was dead or missing before the cops. In my humble opinion, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. A study in wrongness, bent prosecutor, better suspects, no evidence. I think bitter suspects, no evidence, dead judge. And I don't even know where to start with what was up with the jury. It's terrifying and heartbreaking. Like Chandler said, it can happen to you. It really can.
Anyone.
This is proof.
Your brother, your uncle, your cousin.
Law Kong expresses you're not looking for a large roll of carpet. It's 5x7. That was the one that was removed from the house. It was a 5x7 carpet. The one that the other guy's talking about is a big roll of carpet that he had in this stuff to throw away that could easily have been used to roll up a body and a 5x7 carpet.
Yeah.
So they're 2 different carpets we're talking about here. Making law simple network again with $10 super cat. This super chat is not a super cat. Chandler's got the super cat. You got 2 super cats.
Whoa.
You have 3 cats. Okay. And the case was a shot show. It's okay. You can curse here. This case was a shit show and needs more attention. I guess YouTube doesn't let you say the naughty words. Julie O, member for 12 months. It's a whole year. Thank you so much. And then she said she would have a water, but then they never checked the 2 bottles of beer and bottled water in the apartment. Only 1 beer swapped. I don't understand this. Not doing DNA testing or even fingerprint testing on places where murderers touch, light switches, door handles, the place where the frickin' evidence was found.
So
it makes no sense.
Do you want to? So I've learned a little bit about DNA testing, and some of it has to do with the equipment that they use and the sensitivity of it. And when it's something like a switch or a handle, there are too many possible people that might have touched it, and the noise on the signal when they run the PCR testing ends up creating too many differentials on it, and so they can't really define definitively exactly how many people or who it is necessarily, because there are too many contributors to the DNA profile. But there are programs out there and newer equipment that can do it. It just is that most crime labs can't. So sorry.
Beyond that, they didn't even dust for fingerprints on some of those surfaces, though.
Yeah.
And Nicholas Starov says, by the way, Gravely doesn't record his interviews with the witnesses. Coincidentally, almost all change their stories after these unrecorded interviews.
Yeah,
There's
that's huge. Thank you, Nicholas, for pointing that out, because I think that's a huge part of what is so sketchy about all of this. If you don't have anything to hide, why wouldn't you record it?
Well, he says that it's not required by law, and it's not something that's manageable. So he couldn't possibly imagine doing it.
And I'm gonna equivocate here. What's worse, this case or Boston? All cases where bad things happen, where prosecutors do things wrong, where there's lack of evidence, where people, all of them are bad. If you're gonna convict someone, if you're gonna take someone's life away, figuratively or literally kill them, you better do it fairly. You better play by the rules, and you better do it right. Mario. Nick actually means an hour and 20 minutes because he's always late and gay. We got him here. That's the cool thing. Tara Rayner, thank you so much. Don't forget the women had an ex that was dangerous. Women had an ex that was dangerous.
Yeah, that's in reference to Nettie, who had an ex that was obsessive and dangerous and is locked up right now. She actually talks about it on the stand.
Julio in the freezer and 2 unidentified male DNA profiles on the phone, but they didn't look into that either, or the pizza box with receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nor
they
talk
couldn't
to the
identify
mailman.
the pizza box. Yeah.
Right. So they couldn't figure out where the pizza came from, and they never talked to the mail deliverer, even though the mailbox is adjacent to Rosalio's door. So why would they ever really do a thorough investigation?
And it took about 12 seconds of internet searching to find the pizza restaurant. You know, it's a receipt. Anyway, Julie, my mom caught our pasture on fire from the burn barrel. Oops, she's obviously a killer.
She killed something.
I may or may not have started a field on fire in my day. Lock Hong Express, please, Solomon, talk about Rosalio's door and mailbox. Oh, see, you're a prophet. You just did. The mailbox is right next to the door in the hallway there.
Great minds think alike.
Tara Rayner, gravely flapping his arms with every word, irked me. Pretty much everything he did, even his existence, irked me.
His voice, so grating.
His little baby tantrums where he would drink his water angrily. Wasn't that your favorite part?
Yeah. Ugh. Emma's Kitchen. Could Campbell and the court woman work together to get rid of him? I don't think they knew each other. They're running late on a date on purpose to make sure he doesn't leave the house. Reasonable doubt. I don't think they worked together because I don't think they knew each other. But either one of them alone could have done it or could have had someone help because they didn't do any testing and they didn't examine the crime scene closely enough and they focused. We just read that. Mm-hmm. Tara Rayner, Zach alone carried a 270-pound man in carpet. Come on, man, with a bad back. Yeah. That's what they want you to believe. Mario again, which ridiculous case is this again? And did this guy actually get convicted from this bullshit? Yes, he did. Life in prison with the possibility of parole. What, when he's 95 or something? Yeah, 50 years, 89. So we're working to get that. It's going to be a slow process, but we're working there. Megan Halligan with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much. First off, Zach was wrongfully convicted. Love you all. I think Rosalio is still alive. Hey, Nick, I sent you a DM on X. Dang, I looked through these, tried to find the ones that were for Nick and didn't see any crap. Sorry about that. DM on X. I will be super chatting you on your stream. By the way, Jeff, I am the one that asked your dog's head sizes. Yeah, we're getting the dog's head measurement here. I'll get those to you soon. She wants to knit them hats. Trying to figure out how to make that work on a bulldog head, but we'll get her the measurement.
That's adorable.
And Tara Rayner going through Discovery on the thumb drive he took. Yeah, that was part of Munch. Munch may or may not have stolen the Discovery.
Yes, they found it in his possession. He was definitely in possession of the Discovery at one point.
Yeah, we can say that, can't we? Let's not say allegedly anymore. Pranav Ohio says, the more I hear about the cases coming out of Kenosha, the more I'm convinced that Rittenhouse's acquittal was nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And Gigi, could the defense have asked for mistrial after OA's outburst? It could have, but I doubt it would have been given because it was literally at the last moment of the trial.
I don't think Zach wanted that because it would have meant going through, like, really extending the process, and I don't think he wanted to put his kids through that over again.
What do you think, Solomon?
I believe that they could have asked for a mistrial. I believe that they could have done that. And I'm not sure why they didn't, but they didn't. And it is what it is. And you're right, Chandler. He didn't want to extend it because the last time that it was extended, it got kicked out a full year when it wasn't supposed to go out more than 4 to 6 months. And here it was. So an extra year in jail, being miserable anyway. It's just living in hell.
Matthew Self, $20. We got the $5 sign language in every available color. Thank you so much for that. And the final super chat of the day, $20. Thank you so much. Gravely still operating in the old way of investigation, just like a cop saying he lunged at me with a knife. That's why I ventilated him. Then the body cam comes out and the purpose behind a closed door / window. Oh, and he's also got the last super chat in. Just came in. Legal Vice is asking for another mistrial. Is just giving the state an extra opportunity to sharpen their dull sword even more. True.
Right.
Yeah, that is a true statement. We got through it, gentlemen and Chandler. That's one of the frustrating things with this case is a lot of cases you can just latch on to one or two things that went wrong and make a point of it. Trying to get anything in this distilled down to a core set of problems is impossible because there was so much of it out there. And thank you to Solomon for coming on to go through this on such an important day, on International Wrongful Conviction Day. And Chandler and Aussie, you guys rode from the beginning. We got through this together. It wouldn't have been a good stream without having you guys here to throw in the input, to be here, to take your credit where the credit is due. Aussie Overlaw'd needs to be subscribed to. And
you had to get some sleep at some point anyway, so.
Yeah. I mean, literally, when I say couldn't have done it, literally couldn't have done it, because we had to do the tag team thing, and they were the ride or die through the whole trial. And
well, Jeff, you took the morning session, and Aussie took the afternoon, and I would go from yours to Hayden's. I got to watch the entire thing. Luckily, I was available to do that. And I love when something crazy would happen and Hayden would be like, I have to call Jeff and wake him up immediately. when the munch thing happened and you were asleep. Oh my God. And I think we were drunk that day too. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
You missed that.
Yeah. Brandon may have paid a visit that day, and I'm just like, crap, do I wake him up or do I not? Is this going to be a mistrial? Do I need to do it? Yep. Okay, fine.
That's worth going back and watching for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, Solomon, I'm so happy that we got to do this with you. You are an incredible brother, and you're an incredible advocate, and I just so appreciate your voice because you're so articulate. You know the case so well, and you always show up prepared, and I appreciate the way you educate everybody. You have a lot of really great points. I hope you can make your own YouTube channel. You need to finish the bathroom for Jen so that you can do that.
I'm working on it.
Holly Moore says, so much love to all of y'all. Hashtag FZA fam. Solomon, give us a closing comment.
Hammer, thank you for your effort. Supporters, thank you for your time pulling all those clips together, prepping all of this for us to make it possible. It really helped make this whole stream come together. I still stand by my statement that Rosalia's family is in this. We're on the same side. We're all looking for justice. We're all looking for Rosalia, wherever he or his body might be. It's likely that he's passed away. I can't say that he's run off to Never Land. It's very likely that he's gone, and I'm sorry for your loss, but not at the cost of my brother's life, because he didn't do this. Let's find your loved one. Let's do this together and make sure that we're finding justice.
Thank you, Solomon, for everything you're doing and for joining us to explain all this. Again, thank you, Aussie and Chandler. We'll see you all next time. Peace out, everybody. Bye.